Storytelling's hard, right? Tuscaloosa is where we ended up shooting. I'm like racing. I'm like, nothing's gonna be ready. We had shutdowns galore. Like one day there was a storm and all the electricity went out. There's wild hogs in the area. Can't shoot outside. I don't know what to do.
Goes from like a storm to wild hogs to aliens landing.
I knocked on this one guy's door and he came out with a shotgun. I don't know what he was doing on the property. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, yeah, I think your house would be good for a movie. He goes, get off my property. I was like, okay.
He didn't recognize you from Twilight?
No. We gotta get out of here. This is like the murder capital of the world. I almost got shot last night.
Peter, this is insane. You need to like recreate this and have a documentary talking about it.
That movie, honestly, it almost killed me.
Peter Facinelli is an actor, producer, and director known for hit films and TV shows like Twilight, Nurse Jackie, Glee, The Vanished, and Can't Hardly Wait.
Did you know that it was going to be such a big hit?
If they knew Brad Pitt would play my role.
So you almost turned this down.
So I, not knowing anything about it other than it was a vampire movie. And my agents were smart enough to go, well, it's based on a book. All these studios passed on it. They actually made an offer to this other actor.
Do you know?
Yeah, I won't
Can you say why not?
Click, 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 bitch. Well, I always joke with her
Gratitude.
that I bought the role for $29.99. I have to find the reasons where it comes from. And that was uncomfortable to explore.
That is an actor's job. You're exploring humanity. The line of good and evil can go down to the depths of all of us.
Your show is a lot about greatness and how to be great. And I'm humbled that I'm even on the show. I don't think anybody's ever like,
No one ever feels they're
so
finished.
Great.
No.
Because you're never finished.
It's a whole nother level. A whole nother level. A whole nother level.
And then he finds this case that's going to pay him this last paycheck to do that, but he gets sucked back into this obsession. And in that, when you get to the end of the movie, my character loses his son, right? So what's the movie about? People, you could say it's about a guy who loses his son because that's the overarching theme.
Yeah.
Because the senator loses his son, right?
Yeah.
But then I also lose my son because of my flaws of being so obsessed.
Right.
That's a through line, and then you can layer the, him
to fight darkness is
yeah.
to fight yourself.
Yeah, and it's like here he was so.
No. Yeah, so if you don't know, we're talking about this movie that we got to work on together about fighting corruption and
Fighting crime.
fighting crime.
Not all heroes wear capes, Peter Facinelli and Susie. Everybody.
Boo boo boo.
There we go. We got sound effects
DJ Khaled. Yeah. So, how has that transition to directing and producing as a storyteller? How's that been? How's that journey been for you?
I mean, storytelling's hard, right?
Storytelling, it really is trying to get it right.
Thing is getting it right, and like what story you want to tell, and then as an actor, you have your story you want to tell, and as a director, it's your job to tell the story, and then as a producer, your also job is to like, hey, we have making sure that a story is being told, to an audience. So like, it's.
You're trying to get the resources and the money and then put it all together as a producer.
It's a lot of collaboration. Everyone's got to be on the same page, and sometimes you're not. And sometimes I find that you might not agree and with this one thing. And you butt heads and you butt heads and you butt heads. But out of this disagreement comes this other thing that neither one of you really thought about, that you're like, oh, but what if you're not right and I'm not right? What if it's this? And I can work on my bedside manner because I get so like frustrated about the point of view that I have and the other person's point of view. But then as soon as you like come to an agreement, okay, that neither one of us might be right here, and you let go, then something else a lot of times blossoms out of that, which is really beautiful. And then you're high-fiving, and that feels good. You know what I mean? How
do you get to that point? Like, how do you? Because if you're both, is it
just get wrestled to the ground and go, I don't care anymore. I don't know. I mean,
do you step away from the project and then you're like, let's take a minute?
I think it comes to a point of like getting each person's point of view out and going, look, there's this point of view I have about this scene or this thing, and the other person will be like the producer, or I'll be directing, and they'll tell, and it's like you have to butt heads sometimes and get tense with them and be like, and fight for what you believe, and then out of that letting go moment of going, okay, I got what all of that out, then the other person hears you and you hear them, and then you get to a place of like, all right, well, what if out of these two things, this other third thing starts to come? And then I'm telling you, like, it's just such an aha moment sometimes. So learning to like let go and, just and hear the other person too is a good thing. I think when you're honestly like, okay, I have my point of view, but I'm also open to hearing. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, I feel like
even if you disagree. Like
100%. I feel like that's been my journey with. We have this other project we've been filming and producing and writing, and all of us will hear each other out. That's been like, we need to hear each other out. Like, regardless if we're like hard line in the sand, like, no, like, Dumbledore, or not Dumbledore, but Gandalf, you shall not pass. Like, this idea will, that shit won't stand, man.
Or a lot of times, like, there might be a solve that you think is right or they think is right, and neither one of them might be right, but out of that, another solve comes, So, yeah, it's a collaboration. It's like everything is in film and art, and our world is collaborative, because you can't do the audience participation is collaboration. They have to show up too. We could be making this thing. It's like, oh, it's the greatest thing ever, and then if nobody shows up, there's no audience participation. It's the tree that fell in the woods.
Do you get a lot of notes from, like, so what we did for our project when we were trying to go through like the first cut. And we're still like in the midst of it right now in post. But so we just, sent it to a bunch of our friends. We're like, hey, what do you think? And everyone, it was, sometimes the notes were hard and we were like, wait, what? And we kind of had to really digest it and sit with it. But if we heard the same note again and again and again, or in a different way, then you kind of...
It's like if somebody's hitting the same note, there's an issue with that. A lot of times people have solves that don't work, or fixes, because everyone wants to fix it. Like, I got an idea to fix it. Here's a fix. And out of it, there might be a germ of an idea, but it's like, is that right? A germ of an idea?
I like germ, a tiny little, a tiny little thing that goes. Gotcha.
A seed of an idea.
A seed of an idea. Yeah.
A germ that grows.
It's the same idea. One has a more beautiful meaning. The other is like, I destroy you. But I think that it can't be the same.
I make words up sometimes.
I make myself laugh. It's so stupid.
But yeah, when it's hitting the same problem area, you're like, I got to take a look at that.
Interesting. There was I have a friend who was mentored by Ron Howard, and one of the first things when he was just starting out directing, Ron told him, he's like, well, things are gonna, you're gonna feel like you're gonna lose a friendship, or you're gonna lose an idea, and, or this is gonna, like, basically, there's gonna be a cut that you don't like, or, you're gonna have to let something go, or you're gonna lose a friendship, or you're not gonna get the shot that you wanted. Do you find that? And do you think that that's true?
Well, it's, you're always compromising, but not compromising the movie. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we're running out of daylight, so like you're not going to get the shot you want, but how can I get a shot that's sometimes even more interesting comes out? Sometimes it's like the pressure of the diamond. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times I find that pressure actually creates something else that you didn't even think of, and then sometimes you're like, oh my god, that's even better.
I love when that happens.
But I think when you're passionate about something, there's there's tension, and there's you sit back and then you revisit, and when you're working alongside somebody, I don't think you ever should let a friendship go because of a movie. You know what I mean?
I agree, but sometimes it's happened.
I find that if the movie's successful, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
It's like you can have the best friendships on a movie, and then it tanks, and then like nobody wants to talk to each other.
Does that happen?
Really? I've had it. Like,
you're just like,
oh my God, let's hang out sometime. And then the movie comes out, you're like, oh God. No, I'm not calling that person anymore. It's like PTSD when you see them. I remember that movie we did?
Bonded.
It's trauma.
So you just don't want to revisit it. You're like, oh, all these memories that turned into like bad memories.
Well,
yeah.
You know, a great time on set doesn't always mean it's going to be a great movie.
It's so true.
And sometimes it's like stressful and tense and like, you know, a lot of cooks in the kitchen and pressure. And then all of a sudden you watch it and you're like, oh, who knew? Who knew? Okay. I never know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like as an actor, as you know, we never know, and you never have that control, and you know what's going to hit, and
I think that's what's hard as an actor, where you don't have the control of it, because that's why, like, I like producing and directing, because like you have a little more say. You know what
Totally.
I mean? As a director, you have a lot more say, but even as a producer, you could be like, well, this cut's good. Did you think about this, or think about that, or this needs tightening? But a lot of times, as an actor, if I don't produce or I'm not directing, I just come in and give my stuff over.
Sure.
And when you see it, you're like, it could have.
Yeah, I should have used this shot. You should have cut this together.
And not out of like, making me look better.
Like
just
ego. It's not out of ego. It's like for serving the project.
For the serving of the story. You know what I mean? You're like, if you just would have done these couple of things, like I think the story could have been better. But you just kind of sometimes walk away.
How was RV, right?
RV Park, The Vanished.
Yeah, The Vanished. So it was originally titled, right, RV Park?
It was called
RV Park.
Originally it was RV Park, then it was like...
It was so good.
A couple of different names. Oh, Hour of Lead was what we were calling it for a while, because there's an Emily Dickinson poem that it opens up on that talks about grief and loss that I really liked. And it's still at the beginning of the movie. It's called Hour of Lead is the poem. And when you go to sell it, then the distribution company's like, well, people are going to think it's Hour of Lead. And you're like, so what?
Yeah, sure.
Dude, who cares?
Yeah. It kind of works.
Hour of Lead, Hour of Lead, like, as long as they know what it, like the trailer, they'll press the button. They're going to be like, I'm not watching Hour of Lead. Hour of Lead, maybe, but not Hour of Lead. I'm like, it doesn't really matter. But, they're like, well, polling says this title will be better. And you got to pick and choose your battles.
Yeah.
And I was like, they chose The Vanished. And I was like, The Vanished sounds pluralized. Like like The Vanished sounds like...
The Vanishing.
Yeah, The
Vanishing.
It's
like alien, supernatural.
The whole town disappeared. And I'm like, we have one little girl that's gone missing. So what is... It's weird. But they liked it. And at a certain point, you got to just go, okay... you fight for what I have other things that you want to fight for. You're just like, okay,
you're like, let this one go.
On that one. At the end of the day, The Vanished, Hour Led, again, the trailer brings you into it.
So you got to direct and you got to be in it.
Yeah,
right?
I wrote that one.
Yeah. Wow. So you wrote, directed. How was working with Thomas Jane
they were great. Yeah, and
late Anne.
Yeah.
And did that happen shortly after? Was that
like a couple of years later?
Okay.
A couple of years later. Yeah, I mean, look, they were wonderful. We had a wonderful cast. It was hard. That movie was hard to shoot. It was like Murphy's Law.
Oh no!
It's
just everything goes
wrong. I mean, I could
go wrong.
If I did a documentary on that movie, that would have been award winning.
Shut your face!
Like, the insanity of what I was dealing with.
No.
With that movie behind the scenes.
I need to know all the stories you need to tell me,
You got
Peter.
like 5 hours?
Yeah, yes, we do. Actually, our last podcast was 3.5 hours, so let's go.
So the movie was with this other producer, and they kept saying, we're going to start next month. And I'm like, we're going to start next month.
I remember this.
And I was like, okay. And then we're going to start next month. So, like, I was turning down jobs going, I'm starting this movie next month. And then it would
You
get
told me
pushed
about
and pushed,
this in, like, 2014.
Yeah, so, like, 8 months, it kept getting pushed. I was like, I haven't worked all year because I keep thinking we're starting. This is like Lucy and Charlie Brown. They keep pulling the football, So then this other company came in. They were like, we'll finance it. And then it was, like, up and running. And I was like, okay, great. But we went and they got this... we were going to do pre-production in Ohio. Yeah. And it couldn't have gone better in Ohio. It was like, we were going to start shooting like on my birthday. Like I had the cast that I was auditioning for smaller roles. They were like, that guy's really good. And oh my God, such great actors. I was so excited. They were like, which RV would you like? I was like, well, the character would actually be in a big Class A, this color. Got to pick everything out, like clothing. And then 2 weeks later, we find out that we didn't get the tax incentive. So I was like, whose idea was it to come here and like plant the flag and be like, we're moving it.
So for those who aren't actors or aren't in the business, there's huge. So like when we were filming, you can get basically like 40% off it's like 40% off that you have to
get money back.
You get money back from the government
and from the state for shooting there. So like on a $2 million movie, 20% is like $400,000.
Yeah.
So that means you only have to raise $1.6 million, right? Because the other $400,000 you're getting as a tax benefit because you're driving people to the state.
Yeah.
Well, if you lose $500,000 because you don't have a tax incentive, then you're kind of screwed. And with like a week left of shooting, that's not good, right? So they were like, yeah, we can't get a tax incentive. And I was like, well, we're like here. I said, we should push this movie to like next year. This is November. And then the tax incentive will start over and you can, we'll get it. And they go, no, we need to shoot now because we have the cast coming in. I was like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And they go, can you drive to Mississippi? I'm like, you want me to drive to another state and like see if I can get a tax incentive? Why don't you call first instead of me just getting in the car and driving? And so they called and then they said maybe we can get one in Alabama, and like the clock's now ticking and I have nothing, and actors are flying in a few days.
Oh my god!
And I'm like, should I tell them that we don't have?
By the way, this is a lot kind of sometimes how it happens.
Yeah, so
this is literally a traveling circus.
It's just insanity. So then they said, I think you can get one in Alabama, right? And so they were so cheap at this point because they were like, they spent all this money in pre-production that they thought maybe this thing was going to fall apart, that they wouldn't fly me to Alabama. They said, can you drive? Can you get in your rental car and drive? It's like a 6-hour drive or something. And so me and one other producer got in a car and drove all the way to Alabama. And I met with the people, and they said, yes, you can get a tax incentive. Okay, great. In time. But now I'm in this state with me and one person, and I have nothing.
No idea.
Like
no idea, like where location scouting, where are we going to shoot, where are we going to go? Oh
no
my God.
Costumers, no crew, no RVs,
and where
nothing.
were you originally shooting?
Ohio.
Okay.
So
where you had everything,
I was ready to go with there. The lake was set. We had permits.
Oh man,
I have nothing, and we're starting in like a week.
God, that is a fucking
less than
nightmare.
a week because it was like Saturday or Sunday, and like there was Thanksgiving that Thursday, and we were supposed to start the Monday after. So everything's closed from Thursday to Monday. So I really had like 4 days, So I'm like, okay, well, I mean, what do you want to do? And they said, well. I said, can I get a location manager? Like, help? Well, we can't get one. Can you just look? Because they don't want to pay. They don't want to pay for anything right now, right? So I become like every department on like this $2 million movie.
I'm sorry, can you do it?
Yeah. So I'm like, I drove from the top of Alabama to the bottom of Alabama and back. It's 4 hours if you want to know, going from the top of Alabama to the bottom, looking for this RV park location. And
Peter,
it's like,
no.
It's like they have like water slide. It's too big. I need like a mom and pop kind of shop, And so anyway, I finally found one like 2 days later, and they were like, all right, can I bring my DP in now? Right? I found one in Selma in Alabama, right? And so there was a lake, and it was like kind of long, and it was like compromising the movie because it wasn't like spacious. But I was like, I'll take anything right now,
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll make it work. I don't know.
You can cheat it.
Yeah, I was like, I'll figure out something. So I said, can I bring my DP in? Because I haven't even gone through my shot lists yet. Like I haven't had time because I've been playing location manager. I've been doing other things. So they flew in my DP, and I woke up that next morning and I was like, okay, I had a good night's sleep finally, right? Mm-hmm. And I see the other producer, he's throwing his luggage in the back of a car. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, we got to get out of here. I go, what do you mean we got to get out of here? He goes, yeah, this is like the murder capital of the world. I almost got shot last night.
Oh my God.
I was like, get shot for what? What were you doing? He was like, I was walking around. Some guy, he had a gun. He asked me for money. I said, I'm from New York. You just give it to him. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here.
Motherfucker.
I was like,
no, this is not.
I'm shooting here now because I found a lake, and we're shooting in like 3 days.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we can't shoot here. We're not going to get crew to come in. I was like, but they shot a movie called Selma in Selma. So there has to be crew here. There has to be.
Yeah.
No, the producers don't want to shoot here. Okay, so I had to find it again. Like the next day, I had to find a lake.
Peter,
I finally found one that was like, oh, okay, this one's actually, the best. It was like a lake that I was like, I could put the meters in and make it into an RV park. And so, like, it's a mom and pop kind of thing.
This is T minus how many days before filming?
4 days. And so they go, okay, go home for Thanksgiving, and we'll crew you up. So I went home and I was like, I don't know if this movie's gonna happen. I think they're just going to send me home and just pull the plug. And I go home, and now it's like Saturday. I'm like, so am I coming back? And they were like, we'll let you know. And then the next day, they were like, hey, so we're going to push a couple of days. We couldn't push too much because on the back end was Christmas. So we had to finish before Christmas. Mm-hmm. So I end up going back like that Sunday. And I literally had like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then Thursday we were shooting. So I had like 3 days of like prep.
That's insane.
And at this point,
are you doing all-nighters at this point?
No, I mean the funny thing is they gave me the crew, and I'm picking out costumes, and they're like,
so they did have crew here.
They had crew in
Selma.
It was Tuscaloosa is where we ended up shooting. So because Selma didn't work out, I ended up going to Tuscaloosa.
Got it.
And so they brought the crew in. And I'm like racing. I'm like, nothing's going to be ready. You know what I mean? Like, we're on in 5 and like we have nothing, right? And the actors still think they're flying to Ohio, by the way. Like, they're just like, so I'm like, yeah, well, we had some problems in Ohio. We're going to shoot in Tuscaloosa now. No problems. Like, when you're the leader, you're trying to like make everything like, everything's great. Don't worry about it. And so
you want to shield people from the problems. You want to put out the exactly. You don't you're putting fires out. Yep, being producer and writer.
So now at this point they're like, it's the night before. They're like, I'm like, give me any kind of RVs. Like, I'm not like, this one's good for the character. Like, if it's got 4 wheels and looks like an RV, I'll take it. Every once in a while I get like, the universe would throw me a bone. I'd be driving like and I'd be like, oh, that van, it's like an abandoned van. That's where that looks like that would be good for one of the characters because he lives in a van. Can you go see if you could rent that a van? And they would, and like little things would line up.
So you just like knock on the guy's like door and just be like, hey, can we rent your car for this whatever time? I would do that too.
That's me like driving, hustling,
you.
Get me that van. That's perfect. And I went to this.
Throw some money at the problem. You know what I'm saying?
I knocked on this one guy's door, and he came out with a shotgun. It was like deep south. I don't know what he was doing on the property. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just trying to, I think your house would be good for a movie. He goes, get off my property. I was like, okay.
He didn't recognize you from Twilight?
No, I don't know.
Damn it.
He did not want me on his property. I was like, okay. So we didn't rent his house. But I was like going around finding all the other locations. And then we had to bring in the cast from Ohio because I didn't have time to recast the smaller roles.
Peter, this is insane. You need to like recreate this and have a documentary talking about it.
And then we go to shoot, and the first day, like, nothing's like there, nothing. So the first day goes like this. It's like Anne's there, and I'm like, okay, Anne, so it's, you just got to the RV, right? And it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and like you're walking to pay at this little store. We looked out as we were driving out to that lake property. There was a little mobile home that some guy had like parked his mobile home. Yeah, he was like, yeah, they're making me move off the property. We're like, could we just rent it out for 3 weeks? And I made it into like the store. And that's what I mean. Like sometimes the universe is like, okay, well, I'll throw you this. I'll throw you that. Mm-hmm. So I said, you're going to the RV park store. And then you see this like, shady looking guy. He's driving a 4-wheeler, and he's like the maintenance guy around. And he just throws something out in this dumpster. He shoots you a look. It's a little weird. You wave. He doesn't. Not too big of a deal. And you go into the store. You got it? Great. Okay, good. So I go, where's the actor that I cast to play the groundskeeper.
Oh, no.
And they go, he's at the airport. He's at the airport? Yeah.
Can we go get him? Can we go get him?
I'm shooting a scene. He's supposed to be in the scene right now. Like, who scheduled his scene if he's at the airport? Well, he'll be here in like an hour and a half. Okay. What about the dumpster? He throws something out in the dumpster. I need that because it's like a plot point, so I need to like set it up in the scene. Yeah, we don't have that. Oh, you don't have that? Okay. I mean, I don't have the actor or the dumpster. Okay. And there was like, how long can you get me one? They said, yeah, about an hour. Okay, so I'll have a dumpster. What about the 4-wheeler? I know we picked one out yesterday. You said, do you want the red or the blue? You have that, right? Yeah, we have that, but it doesn't work. Okay. Now I'm just problem solving, so I'm going, all right, Ann, so I'm going to follow you, and then
How did they get one that doesn't work?
So I'm like, I'm gonna follow you, and then just pretend that somebody's like riding up. When he comes, I'll turn the camera on him. And I'll film it. But for now, just pretend he's there. Have somebody wave to you. You kind of just, and then you go into the store. And then when I get this was Ann.
Okay.
And then Ann, then when the dumpster and the four-wheeler and the kid comes, I'll just whip the camera over. I'll have him hop off. I'll put the sound in later, like he jumped off the thing.
Yeah.
It'll all work in the cut. Okay. Problem solving. So we get there and it's a steady cam shot, and she's walking to the store and there's an older gentleman that's like filming, and it's like all over the place. Like he's not like filming. He's not filming.
I hate this. I hate this.
Sky and feet. And I'm watching the monitor, and the monitor keeps going out. So I'm like, oh, I think I got the shot. I'm tapping on this broken monitor, and like he's not getting the shot, right? And it's a straight walk. And I go to and the AD comes running over.
Is it his first day?
I think he was just an older guy, and the AD goes, oh, we got to move on. I was like, well, move on from what? Like,
we haven't shot anything. I don't know.
I 3 takes, and I don't know.
I don't even know what I'm looking at.
The guy's got the sky and the feet, and half the time the monitor's going out. So I I can't move on. I don't have the shot. And so I was like, I went to my DP and I was like, do you think he'd get mad if I put the the equipment on? I don't know how to do it, but I think I could do a good job. He's like, no, I think he'd be offended. I was like, all right, well, let's just try it one more time. And we got something. I was like, I think that's usable. And then I had Steadicam shots for the rest of the day, and I was like, I can't use them because they're way more like explicit shots, right? And if he can't do a straight walk, like there's no way he's gonna be getting the shots that I need. So I literally went and I said, well, my DP goes, do you want to go handheld? And I said, well, we can't go handheld because you're opening up the movie and it's got to feel really smooth and quiet and beautiful, and it's going to be shaky. It's just not the right tone. I'm not trying to be like a prima donna. I just don't want to set the movie off on the wrong foot stylistically. I said, so it's got to be smooth. What about like a dolly? You got like a dolly, and he goes, yeah, that comes tomorrow. Oh, God. Like, okay, you got like sticks and a slider? Yeah. All right, put on sticks and a slider, and I'm going to create blocking that's like interesting. And then later, the next scene, Thomas is like unpacking the trailer. I'm just having him come towards camera and move away from camera. So I created the scene less about the camera moving and more about the actors blocking.
Yeah.
Which, in a weird way.
Was it a happy accident?
Yeah, it was a happy accident.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? So it's like, but it was that the whole shoot, like things weren't ready. Okay, we got to do this. Move that. But at the end of the day, the movie, I was really proud of it. And like I fought.
It was great.
Yeah, so.
You never would have known. Hold on. I feel like there's more. Finally the actor, did he come in? Like what happened to that?
Nothing was ever ready on time. The trailers were there, but like we were always trying to fix stuff. I mean, we had shutdowns galore. Like one day there was a storm and all the electricity went out. So like we lost half a day there. One day the cops came knocking on the door. We were shooting, and you guys can't shoot outdoors. Why not? There's wild hogs in the area. Wild hogs.
Yeah, they're dangerous, apparently.
Apparently.
They can fuck you up.
So, like, we're all, like, huddled in this trailer, like, can't shoot outside, don't know what to do. And
so it goes from, like, a storm, a crazy storm, to wild hogs to
storm,
aliens landing.
Like, it was just like that and when we got shut down by SAG because they didn't pay which is really embarrassing as an actor, because I'm with SAG, and they didn't pay the bill in time or something, so we got this notice, don't work on Peter Facinelli's movie. I'm like, what? I'm in SAG. What? This is embarrassing, guys. Come on. So like we had to shut down production. So all these shutdowns, and then it just makes the schedule even tighter, because I'm like, you guys are giving me like 2 days of work to do in like half a day.
So you prepped in like 3 days.
Yeah.
That's insane. And when nothing worked, where you don't have a Steadicam guy,
Yeah.
you a guy who's like has a broken back. You have, and if you don't know a Steadicam, it's like 50 pounds. It's this huge thing. It's a huge camera.
It's not easy to operate.
It's not easy to operate.
But,
and if you have a back problem, you are fucked. You cannot do a 40-second long shot, because you'll just, you're carrying this heavy weight.
I mean, the first 2-3 days, they were like shuttling people for lunch. And they were like, oh, the hotel's only like 15 minutes away, so we'll just get a van and we'll shuttle people to lunch, which sounded great.
And then it takes hours to get them back.
They only had one van.
Oh, no.
And 60 people. So then the van only holds like 12 people. So you got to make 6 trips. That's 15 minutes there, 15 minutes back. Do the math. It was a 3-hour lunch. So I'm sitting there, lunch got broke. I'm like, where's everybody? Oh, they're not back yet. 3 hours.
Oh my God.
And then the next day, they didn't fix the problem. So, like, I was literally, again, I was like, guys.
Was it a first-time crew? Who's the line producer on this?
I mean,
what was
I
happening?
think it was really prep. It was a lot. I mean, that guy was doing the best he could under the 3 days of prep, you know?
Yeah.
But he thought, hey, that's a good idea. But, like, I was like, bring lunch
Here.
to us.
Yeah.
Put
Just
it over
Postmates.
there.
Postmates.
I mean, just have
That's
it in
what
a
we do.
tent, and
Yep.
we'll bring lunch to us because I can't have everybody going
No.
that way. But the good thing about that movie, honestly, it almost killed me. But like, but like, the bigger thing was I had to do so many jobs, like location manage and like problem solving.
You're also PA.
Producing, PA. Like I had to do so many fixes.
Here, do you want a water? Here,
Yeah,
you're
I was
second
like,
ADing. You're ADing.
I was like, there's no movie that that would be harder than this.
After that,
After
yeah.
this, it's like I've moved mountains and I did every job that I could. So now, like, I'm 3 steps ahead of like everything that could go wrong because I've already seen all
What
the
can
wrongs.
go wrong.
I've seen
You've seen
all the
all of it.
wrongs. I don't think there's a wrong that I haven't seen. So like when you're able to rise to that occasion, then it builds character and confidence to be able to go, okay, I can. So I was on another movie set, and
Wait, the fire.
yeah, the fire movie
yeah.
On Fire, and the director, a weekend got COVID.
It was called
On Fire.
On Fire.
Yeah, and I was just supposed to star in that one. I wasn't even supposed to produce it. I was just going to come in.
And then you're like, well, all
run
these
around.
fires, I am a firefighter. As a metaphorical firefighter, I can put all that out.
So the director got COVID, and like they were like, hey, can you take over? Because like we can't shoot. Can't shut down for like 2 weeks. We'll lose everything.
We'll lose everything.
And so I talked to the director, and like I had already shot like 8 or 9 days, and so I was like, we were on the same page about what we wanted, what we both liked, our tastes, and like, so I was like, all right, I'll just finish up, but I was able to step in without any real prep and able to star in it and also direct because I had done a lot of putting out the fires on the other
Yeah.
so I was able to like take that and just run with it. And so we were making our days on that. Be like, hey, are you okay? Yeah. You get so busy that you're just like, okay, now I'm playing the part and now I'm doing this, and then you just get it done. And so, but if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't have been able to take over on, in that moment. You know what I mean? So like as hard as that experience was on The Vanish, I was proud of what I was able to get out of it, because if I crumbled, then the whole movie would have fell apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So.
your ability to pivot is pretty incredible. Like, you like the fact that things were what I find really cool and fascinating. And I mean, this is kind of like partly what the show is about, kind of breaking down what makes someone great is, your ability to handle stress and pressure and millions of dollars on the line and being able to be like, okay, I can crumble and be like, I'm overwhelmed and it's too much. And, or you're just like, you take it in, you're like, okay, what can I do in this moment? What can do you problem solve by just taking each problem at a time? Do you sometimes get overwhelmed? Because it kind of seemed pretty seamless that you were able to just be like, okay, so we don't have that. Let me problem solve. Let me figure out, okay, we don't have that RV that I want, or that, what was that? That little cruiser BT, what was
the
that?
four-wheeler.
Yeah. So you're like, okay, we can adjust here.
It's one of those things that's like, and I think athletes have it too. When you're in the present moment, you're not thinking about the solve because it's all downloading to you so fast that you're just like in the present moment,
right?
Because you don't have time to sit there and go, okay, let me think how this. You're just like, okay, that's not ready. That's not ready. That's not ready. But what if we did this, and this, and this? You got that? Let's go. And you keep the morale going, and you go, and it's like it's really that
the morale is really
being,
important.
Weirdly, a feeling of like. Of being in that present moment in a flow state, you know what I mean, and when you find that, and it's stressful, but it's also like the problem solving feels good when it's like coming at you. We were doing this one scene, and I had this scene over here, and it was a couch, right, and I needed to like shoot this side of it, and then. There was another couch.
Was
on
this
this
on
side.
Fire?
Yeah, this was on The Vanish.
Oh, Vanish.
In the RV park, there was like one side of a couch and another side of a couch, and I needed to shoot it but I had to do a turnaround on it, right? Like, so I would have had to like change all the lighting.
Did you do a French? What is it called? The French
overs?
Yeah.
No, it's just like if I'm shooting everything this way, right? But now I got to come around and shoot the opposite way to get, the coverage of it. And I was sitting there going, I don't have time to flip all these lights around. But then I go, well, and I didn't even know if this was right or not. I said, what if you just reverse, when you flip the camera, you can flip the,
Yep.
what if you just, can you in camera flip it? And then it'll look like the other side and it'll just be a reverse angle. And they go, I don't know, let's try it. And they flipped it in camera. I was like, it works. Now I don't have to change the lights. And we just saved like 40 minutes of lighting changes, And it was just, I didn't know that I knew that, you know what I mean? It was just like, that came to me and I tried it and then it went, the problem's there. And then your brain's like, how do I solve it,
Yeah, my friend Alona Tall, she was shadowing Chris McQuarrie for Mission Impossible, and so half the time, I mean, it's them. They're like, all right, well, figuring shit out on the fly.
All problem
It's
solved.
literally,
literally,
and you think like you're like at that level of directing where Chris wrote like Usual Suspects, and I think he directed a lot of the Mission Impossible movies, and yeah, it's literally like, okay, what do we? Sometimes it's like, you would think that they would have the shot list, but shit goes wrong and it's constantly adjusting.
I like to be prepared, so I'll always have like an idea of something. And you also have like a backup idea of something.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're like, oh, that doesn't work and that doesn't work. And the actor's also like, well, what if I stand over here?
Right.
And you're just like, well, that doesn't really work with what I have, but that actually, okay, that makes more sense. And then you're just like, okay, well, how can I make this thing that I was doing good for over there? And then sometimes you have to, be a politician and be like, well, can we try it over here because this isn't is, and then you convince the actor just to sit in the fucking chair and say his line. You got one line, just say it here. Why? Because the shot looks good. But you're like, well, I think your character, at this point is tired, and I think if you sat here, you could really play that. And the actor is like, yeah, that's a good idea. If I'm standing, I think I'm tired. I think I'll sit here. You're like, thank God.
Do you like, as coming from being an actor, do you sometimes see your younger self and you're like, that's what that looks like. Damn it. Like if they, you know what I mean? Like when you're young and you have these ideas and now being a director where you can see more of the puzzle pieces.
I mean, I like to think my ideas were good when I was younger too. Only because the problem that I have is, like, I think my brain has always thought as a director in a weird way. And in a weird way, I find acting more uncomfortable than directing. You know what I mean?
How so?
Acting for me, I enjoy it because like when you're doing it well, it's like the highest form of meditation.
Yes.
Because you're so in this present moment and you don't know what just happened, and it's like going on a ride.
Yeah, totally. You have no idea what you have.
Even
though you know what the lines are, you have no expectation of where it's going to go.
It's just going bing, 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 and it's like
incredible.
This beautiful thing, and it takes on. It's like the scene is just doing you. You're not doing the scene is you're becoming part of it.
Yep.
And it's so wonderful. But I do find I grew up really shy, so like I still have moments of feeling uncomfortable or like it's vulnerable, or here's a scene where and he breaks down and cries, and you're like, okay, you don't want to be the guy that's like, get that tear out, but like, all right, you got to get there, but you don't want to get there at the top of the scene because he doesn't start crying until like halfway through, but you got to let go, and so like.
Is it hard to like bury your soul in front of the camera?
Sometimes I'm like, but there's other times where it feels like, okay, this feels comfortable. But I think what I find, I kind of look at it. My brain just works as a director. So like even this last movie I was on, the directors, got like, 5-7 setups of this thing, and I'm like, if you started here and we just went this way and then did this, you can have a natural over. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but this is a possible way that you could cut 4 of your shots out and have what you want. Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't think of that. And I can't help but think that way. And I'm always very respectful. Like if he's like, no, because I like this shot. Oh, okay, great. Then you do your thing. But like, it's hard for me to not go, well, excuse me, what if you did this? Because it's my brain just thinks that way. You know what I mean? And not in a way of like, the scene has to be in my control, more of a way of like, how can we tell this story with the camera, with the blocking, with the actors? You know what I mean? As opposed to just, and maybe it's because I haven't had, I mean, I've had few directors where I'm fully like, okay, now I could just let you guys do you, and I'll just, come in and
which were the directors
so
where
wonderful.
you feel like you can just kind of relax because you're like, man, you're driving.
Yeah.
You're like best in the world who's driving.
I really liked working with McG. McG like always jazzes you up, makes you feel like try this, try that, and I'm not thinking about camera. I'm always,
Which film was that?
It was a TV series I did called Fastlane.
Oh.
And then Twilight. That was a really good experience. Catherine Hardwicke.
Oh, Catherine Hardwicke.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Catherine Hardwicke. I had a good experience with her because I never went to Catherine. I was like, what camera lens are you on? Like, where are you? I just did my thing, and then she captured it, which is really wonderful. But I've done a lot of independent movies too, and a lot of those independent movies, like you want to trust the director, but you could see that they're not quite, fully understanding it all yet. You know what I mean? So I help when I can. I back off when I feel like I never want to cross over to the side where it's telling them what to do at all. And then I try to work collaboratively with them and try to tell the best story. I never look at it like, we have to do this because my character would. I'm always bigger picture, like the story. How does my character fit into this story? You know what I mean? And sometimes I'm like, it's less. I'm like, I don't think that I think this steps on the other person's stuff, and that person's moment needs to be right now. So I can't help but think of the story overall, as opposed to and where I fit into that story.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is I think a blessing. I mean, in a lot of ways, because then it becomes like I'm here for
you're serving the project,
I'm serving the story. You know what I mean?
Versus and you're like,
there's
me,
a lot
me.
of actors that come in and it's like,
Sure.
well, I would do this and I would do, but it's not really serving the story.
It's not serving the story. Yeah.
It's really like they're just thinking about that one element. And,
sure.
And I think as an actor, you're a piece of the puzzle. So you give over your performance and then you walk away. And so, like, that's why directing I feel more comfortable because I'm like, okay, well, at least I have the control of going, I could play with this or try that. And then you tell the story and then you get input from people. And,
Totally.
I'm never like, it's a masterpiece. You try to get, as much feedback as you can. I think if you're really good, you take ideas from everywhere.
Everywhere. It's such a collaborative process.
I find that the people I love to work with, they are very open. You know what I mean? Because if they're like, when they're insecure, that's when they're very closed off because they feel
ego,
it's the
right.
ego,
Or I wonder, like, I kind of feel like, or if it's somebody like Sorkin who's very like, he spent so much time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's
people
people who are very specific. Like
then you're like, okay.
Or Fincher.
Yeah.
Fincher is so specific.
Like I wouldn't be telling Fincher, hey, we want to try this camera angle. like I know he knows what he's doing. He's got the years experience, and then I can be just allowed to do my thing, and that would be really beautiful and wonderful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've worked together, and we had so much fun.
So much
because
fun.
It was like. You come in and it's loose and it's free and try this and try that and, play with this. And like, I always left feeling like, hey, we explored,
I'm totally that, especially in rehearsals. Like this is the part that I really found is on every project now, I'll try to get rehearsal time, like if I can, I'm like, hey, look, I'm doing a thing and I want it to be as, really the best I possibly can. And not I had done a 4-picture deal. It was like rom-coms, but there's very little time. You have to shoot in 14 days, which is fucking insane.
Well, the funny thing is like, look, you can't shoot in 14 days if you don't have that prep and rehearsal. 14 days is, you could do it if everybody's on the same page. If everyone's showing up trying to figure it out in the first 3 days and then it's like it's become, what people don't understand is, like, the magic doesn't just happen.
No.
Like, you have to have the time, the prep time. And I find that, people want to cut down the prep time because there's too much money. Well, if you actually spent the money in prep, you spend less money with the screw-ups and the overtime and the shutdowns. And the same thing with rehearsals. Like, well, agents are like, well, we don't want to give more time, the actor's time. I've never seen an actor that's actually who came on to do the job go, I want to get my stuff done in 4 days instead of 5. Like if I come on to a project, it's like, you need me for 9, I'll do 9.
Unless it's Bruce Willis. Well, Bruce Willis, he's like, yo, I'm one and done. I'm like, yo, we're doing it for a few hours. You got me here. I'm leaving on my jet.
but Bruce wasn't always like that. You know what I mean? And I think Bruce, over the years, got to a point where he's like, I'm just gonna come in and do my thing and go home.
Yep.
And he was also getting sicker. But like, in the beginning, like you saw him show up and be giving and like,
I think in order to have a career, the one that he had, absolutely.
But if people were like, hey, to the actor, would you come and give 2-3 days rehearsal? Yeah, I'll give a week. Like, let's do it. Let's explore. Let's play. Let's talk. And the rehearsal doesn't have to be like 100% full blown out. Let's do it and burn out. It could also be like just sitting around chatting about getting familiar with your coworkers, feeling that trust. Because I find when that day one, when you have the trust and you, like we were so comfortable with each other because I knew you, you knew me for years.
I slept on your couch when I went through a breakup for a month.
So like,
I was literally on your couch. I'm not even, it's really funny with Charlie. And after a month, you were like, okay, Suze, it's time to go. But a month, he was... Oh my God, I love you forever. Thank you so much.
Anytime. My couch is always yours.
Fuck, I love you.
You're like my sister.
I know, same.
So like when you showed up, like we have history, we know each other, and it was easy and fun.
So easy.
But like if you and I just met and there's just like, you feel a little off, and now, hi, I'm Peter, I'm playing your husband. Nice to meet you. You're my wife. We have years of history, and I've done my homework, and you've done but there's just that feeling of like, safety and trust, and knowing each other, and hey, I feel okay. I can be vulnerable in front of you, and sometimes that's what all the rehearsal process really needs to be, or get the ideas out. Because what I find is, when you're shooting a movie, it's like you have sun up to sundown or sundown to sun up. You have a very limited time. You're always racing a clock. It's like, okay, and go. And every conversation you have is stealing time that you could be shooting, right? So like you could have a 10-minute conversation with an actor, no big deal. But then you go over here and, I'm gonna have a 10-minute conversation with this actor about that. And then, I have to have a 5-minute conversation, 10-minute conversation over here about this. And then you have all these conversations. And then if a scene is like, it's not working and and you're trying to work it out, that's like an hour. You know what I mean? And like, but if you had that rehearsal time and everybody's on the same page and everybody's feeling comfortable, and you get on and it's just like flying and cooking. Okay, we got it. Let's move on next. And so like, I just find if people want to save money or with prep or rehearsal, and that's where you save money by doing like nobody goes and does a Broadway play and just shows up day of and was like, I know my lines, you know your lines. Let's go.
Do it.
You know what I mean? Like it's weeks and weeks of rehearsal and prep and finding and exploring. And like if they could get to that, and I'm not saying weeks and weeks, but it would be nice, to play and explore and get to know and try things and
I think that's where I just kind of started this just for myself, where I'm like, hey, are you down like to rehearse like literally every day for a few hours, because then we can kill this and then we can actually have fun and we can play. We can be in the state of play. And it changed, like, because it kind of was like acting boot camp for me, having these really quick turnarounds of 14 days and having to do all these rehearsals and find discoveries. And I actually, it's like the discovery part is my favorite time, and becoming friends with, your colleagues and having, just like building rapport. But it's always the discovery process of finding something where you find the magic, has been really, really magical for me in my life. So I'm like, I guess because it comes down to money, where, on all my last projects, like I can see the difference of the acting. I can see the trust. I can see I'm fully present. I'm fully there. I'm not thinking about, what do I have to say? Like you're suddenly in your head thinking about like a line, or you're thinking, because you're not, you haven't really worked it out enough, or, I don't know. It kind of does blow my mind that we don't do that enough. I think back in like the 70s and the 80s and 90s, they used to do that all the time.
All the time, because it came from theater, So a lot of those directors would be like, let's just get together and kick it around or talk about it and discuss. I did a movie once that was all improv.
Ooh, what?
And that was really fascinating. It was me and Saffron Burrows and Burt Reynolds.
Oh my God!
It was the three of us, and this whole script was like 20 pages, 25 pages, but it was all scene setups, right? So it's a fascinating way to work, and I really enjoyed it because it would be like, because all life is
improv.
Is improv. So it's like, hey, Peter and Susie are going to sit down at a table and we're going to talk about life. You don't know what it's going to be, but we're having this conversation, and then it's going to be over, and I don't know what we talked about.
What did we just say?
So it's like, the script would be like, Peter meets his boss, and his boss asks him to lunch, and yada yada. And these are the points that you have to kind of hit in the scene.
Yeah.
And it forces you to kind of listen.
Really listen and be present.
And then actors are creatures of habit, so you find some things, some lines that work in the other person, and then it naturally creates this scene, and then you do coverage on it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of creating this thing together, which is really beautiful. But what the rehearsals were, because we had no dialogue, was really thinking about your character, talking about the character, talking about you had to know what CD is playing in your car, because if someone's in the middle of the scene going, what music do you like, you can't be like, oh, let me think, what kind of music do I like? You got to be like, oh, I've got Radiohead. Radiohead's playing in my, like your mind goes to Radiohead's playing in my car right now. Radiohead, you know what I mean? So you have to know your character so well to improv.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at it like, well, why don't I just start treating every job as that? That would be fun. Like sometimes that might not come out.
Do you have a playlist that you listen to?
Sometimes, if it's like an emotional scene or something, or like there's scenes that put you in a vibe. Sometimes I find it more distracting to do that.
What's your go-to song?
It really is different for like every
character.
every character, every
yeah,
role.
It's true. It's so true.
But sometimes I find it to be a distraction. Like I'll be like, let me shut this off because he gives me the eyes like your phone keeps going.
I was like Tanner. I was like psst, Tanner. Psst.
It wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
I'm saying on the counter.
It wasn't me.
Banging on the sofa.
Yeah, I it's different for each, and like sometimes I'll get into a song and I'll be like, oh, I'll just play that over and over. Mostly like more in my ride to work than before a scene. I actually find it sometimes distracting to like be thinking about a piece of music that's outside. I mean, it could put you in the mood, but then like,
Doesn't Johnny Depp, I think he had earbuds, right? At one point where he was just like, he was almost like
Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando, where he's just like, feed me the lines. I want to be in the present, in the present moment kind of thing.
I mean, I
he literally, I think he would just listen to music.
I've worked with actors that have had earbuds.
When? Who?
Oh my God.
Oh my God! Wait,
but,
really?
Like, I'm fascinated by that because, like,
same. Does it help?
I mean,
was their acting great?
It was good, but it was like, I couldn't do it. I would again.
Was it big actors? Because I feel like it's only like the really quirky big actor
that's done it for most of his career. He's just like, that's how I like to work. So
but wait, how do you not see it in the ear?
It's a very small little piece, and the woman in the other rooms, and I don't hear it, and I barely saw it, and I forgot that he had it in most of the time. But he's just used to working that way.
Fed the lines?
Yeah, which is, to me, I couldn't do it because like I'd be hearing this thing in my
I would
ear.
Be, you're schizophrenic.
And
you're like
would
suddenly have another voice.
I can't be fully present with you when this other thing's in my head. Like I don't know if that would work for me. You know what I mean? And I wish it
I have
would,
enough voices in my head.
Yeah, because I don't. I mean, learning lines is a drudge. Like I never like learning lines.
I hate it.
It's like I'm not. I mean, the more you do it, like if you're on a TV series or you're doing a movie, like by day 3 or 4, it starts to stick more.
Totally.
But the first couple of days, like it's like riding a bike. You just feel like wonky, or like you're thinking about a line and you're like, oh, I hate that line.
I hate that line. You want to change the line.
And then every
you're
time
like,
that line comes up, you know you're going to screw that line up because it's just like clunky.
Do you just change it sometimes? Or like have there been projects where they're very, like a Sorkin where they're like, do not change the line. Do not.
It depends on what it is. If they're loose about it and you're like, okay, look, I can... then fine. And if they're like, no, I've been on, like, I was on
Nurse
6
Jackie?
Feet Under.
Oh.
6 Feet Under, I was on, and they're very specific about the line, but the writing is so good.
It's so good.
You're just like, I don't, really want to change the lines.
Sure.
You know, but even if I did, I wouldn't, because they're very specific about
Yeah.
the line. If they want to change a line, if you're like, hey, can I change a line? There's 5 phone calls that have to be made.
Wow.
Before you get like, no, they like it. Oh, okay. You know.
That was HBO or Showtime?
I think that was HBO. Yeah. Was it? Yeah, HBO. Nurse Jackie, for the most part, yeah, the writing was really good. So I don't think I changed much. Sometimes you ad lib a little something, but again, like, you want to be respectful to those writers, because there's a whole writers' room that's like, hey, we worked very hard on these lines, so you say those lines, and then I would always like, you know, go to them. And then you work on some movies where the writing's not great, and you're working with the writer or you're working with the director, and you're like, yeah, they want you to kind of make it your own. So you kind of read the room, you know, you do.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
Well, sometimes. I mean, generally my higher self always reads the room, but I'm like, nah, I can push it. Push it. I'm like, oh, I fucked around and I found out, no, that was not the right play that I should have done. Yeah. So my higher self always knows. I'm like, don't say it, Susie. Don't say it. I'm like, I'm going to say it. No, you're not. Okay, I won't say it. I'm saying it.
I mean, you want to have that freedom, though. You know what I mean? Because if you have an impulse in a scene and you're kind of going, I don't want to do that because I don't want to get in trouble, then you're stifling the character and yourself.
Yeah.
Some people aren't good at improving or
no,
like,
you have to kind of reel me in. You got to reel me in, because I'll just keep going forever. That's the thing. You see, Tanner's nodding. Tanner's like, yeah.
Sometimes even in that, like, there could be a gem. Or a germ.
It's true. A germ.
a germ or a gem. But like,
or a seed.
The thing is, like, if I were directing you, I'd be like, yeah, try this, try that, because I want you to be able to bring your personality to it.
Yeah.
Because I can cut stuff or you know, move stuff around. So it's like, if you start going off on like some other tangent, I'd be like, Susie, we're listening. But like, you know, you want
I do.
You want that person to feel like they can make it their own too. I like to work collaboratively, you know. I like to see what the actors are bringing to the table, but you also, you know, want to steer the ship too. Like,
totally,
you know, if you don't, then all of a sudden the inmates start taking over. You're just like, well, hold on a second, you know. So I work collaboratively, but I'm also like, you know, I had an actor that I worked with, and I worked with him as an actor on one movie, and he drove that director kind of crazy because he'd always be like, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't do this. And the director was like, I need you to say it. You know, can you? And there would be conversations, and the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
And the director would get frustrated, you know. And then I worked with them.
Was he speaking as his character, or was it more of a him?
Here's the thing: what I find, he wasn't trying to be difficult. He really had points to what he was saying.
That makes sense.
But the problem is, like, when you're taking up the time, you know, and you're on this clock of daylight to sundown. You know what I mean? Like, I those conversations should really be had prior, or like, because you just don't have the time to get there and be like, I have a problem with the scene. You know what I mean? Like, tell me the night before. Like, let's go to dinner. You know what I mean?
You did that. You were so amazing. Oh my God, Peter.
I took this. So I was directing this actor on a movie, and I knew their work, and I said, you know what? I went to dinner with them before we shot, and I went through the entire script. And sometimes they would be like, hey, I don't think I'd say that. And I was like, all right, well, what do you want to say? I wrote it, you know, and, you know, you change it up. And then sometimes I'd be like, well, you have to say that because of this. And then it turns around where this happens. So, like, and it was a give and take. But that little dinner, when we went to shoot, I had no issues at all, because that person felt heard. They understood, you know, what their agenda was and what the job was. And like, we were collaborative, and they felt heard and respected. And like, I worked out bugs that I knew could be a problem, but if I had those conversations while I was shooting, it just would have killed my day. You know what I mean? So I try to have those conversations, you know, before, but you know, open to, obviously things arise. Yeah. But like, I find that if you just spend the time before, a lot of stuff gets resolved. You know what I mean? And then you freed up to like play a little bit here. You know.
Totally. When you were so gracious to be in, we had the show Famous Adjacent. I've mentioned that, and we had Erin Moriarty, who was on the podcast. She was also in it, and Alona was also in it.
Such a great pilot. It was such a great pilot.
Yeah.
I'd still like to see that get made one day.
Yeah, it's a show that
you were so good in that too. You're at work in that. It was like so good.
Yeah, I mean, I was basically playing myself. So I feel like when I get to play the roles that are, I guess, closer to me, because I tend to write just whatever's. It feels very Girls meets Sex in the City. Like I guess those are the stories.
Sometimes it's just timing too. Like
no, well, the thing about Famous Adjacent was we were writing about the underbelly of the industry, and so. We literally in season, so when we were writing this in 2013, and then it was at Relativity for a brief moment, and then Relativity went bankrupt, and then the whole thing fell through. And then I was like, I had this great idea. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I just booked a job. Let me, put some of my money into this. And then Kellen Lutz stepped up and he's like, no, I'll pay for it. Like, it's fine. And I was like, great. And we were sort of, you were our first yes. And then we were off to the races of figuring out how to shoot this. And in sort of in the same way that you were, the location manager, the PA, the crafty. I mean, I was literally a one-woman show of trying to, do all those things. I remember you bringing
the waters up the stairs. I was like, can I help you with that? He's like, the whole thing is, you're like, I got it.
and like cleaning the toilets. Like there was hey, like my toilet's broken. I'm like, I got a plunger. And, suddenly I'm like, it's fine. So literally I was trying to do the one-woman job and be locations and, be like, figure out parking and, for the trucks and everything. And so I literally would knock on doors and be like, hey, you want to be in a movie, kid? Here's your big break. And so asking people to park giant trucks. We were shooting at Bootsy Bellows and literally knocking on doors and being like, I'll pay you. Or if you want to be in a movie, and they're like, it's fine. Just park in the driveway. It's whatever. So I was trying to problem solve in the same way, but the reason why I think it didn't go, we were way ahead of its time, and then we were too on the nose to now we're past the point within a year, because in 2013 we had written we wrote the Bible and we were taking down Harvey Weinstein in season 5. Season 5 was my character, we were nominated for an Oscar or something. We're this indie darling. So Alona's character, she's producing it. Christy ends up directing it, and I'm starring in this indie darling. And Harvey Weinstein wants to put us on the cover of Vanity Fair. And then he tries to sleep with me, and I'm like, no, thank you. And so he pulls the cover, and he's like, "Fuck you! You're never gonna work in this town again." And so now, even though we're still, our characters were nominated for this Oscar or something, we get the cover of Rolling Stone, how 3 women, were basically being like, "Fuck you," and how 3 women are paving the way for women everywhere. Cut to the whole Me Too and taking down Harvey Weinstein and how it all happened. I mean, in the trailer, we had hey, you fuck Ratner in the bathroom of the Soho House. You can get him to read the script, right?
That was in our scene.
That was in the scene
I did.
So we were just literally just talking about every experience we ever had, and it was so taboo, and it was too on the nose. It was like, oh God, I don't want to touch this because too confrontive at the time.
And then it became too oh, this is really
this is happening. And then to past the point, okay, everyone's over it. Everyone's over it within an entire year.
I can see that.
And what was amazing was when you brought so much to the table of the typical agent who's like, I'd fuck you in the bathroom of the Soho. I'll fuck Ratner in their bathroom of the Soho House. I'll get him to read the script. And you're like, I would fuck you 2 times. You to Kellen Lutz, Kellen was your client. You're like, I'd fuck you 2 times a day, maybe 3. That's how much I fucking love you. The wildest shit. It was so good. So the night before, you're like, my character wouldn't say this, and we're like, yeah, you're like, if I was this agent, I would, say this. And it was so it was one of my favorite scenes. You brought just so much truth. And it was hilarious. You and Kellen Lutz of
clips of it out for people.
Yeah. And Kellen Lutz improv of he wanted to do the Tootsie remake, and he's like, I just want to dance. All I want to do is I just want to dance. I got my tutu right here. Come on, I can do it right now. It was so ridiculous. Do you think directing has made you a better actor?
Yeah, I think. Listen. Like I said, I feel like I've always kind of had a brain that worked in that way anyway. But what I found was as an actor, you're always like, oh, I want to be a good actor. I want the director to really like what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I hope I get that pat on the back at the end of the scene, because you do the scene and then you go right to the director's eyes, and you could see like him kind of look down, like disappointed, or like give you the thumbs up. And you're always looking for that validity out there, right? And so
you're always looking to be validated. You're like, do you like me? Do you like me? Is it good? Is it good? I can't. I don't know.
You show up. You're like, I hope people like what they want. You want to be a good actor. And like as a director, when I was directing myself, I didn't have anybody to go to be like, hey, were you really good? So, but I knew what I needed. Right?
Yeah, you're the guy.
I'm the guy that's like,
you're the guy.
Okay, now I'm going, okay, go in there, you got to go do it. You know what I mean? And then when I was done with it, I wasn't like, hey, how was that? Oh, you were really good. To yourself, you're just like, that would be weird. So when you're finished with it, you're just like, okay, I got that. And then you move on to the next beat. And then I was more focused on the other actors. And when I'm off camera, or like, when you're in the scene, I'm also conscious that I need these other actors to be good, because I'm directing as well. So I'm like giving everything I can in the scene, and I found myself being more giving as opposed to going out this way, as opposed to going in this way of like, okay, I hope I'm doing a good job. Is the other actor, are they feeding off me? Is there anything I could do? Like it became like, I want to make them the best they can. And so I'm going to be 100% present for them, and I'm really going to make them shine. And the way they shine is if I'm good, right? And then it made me feel like, well, oh man, I need to work like that all the time, where it becomes not about me, but about my scene partner all the time.
Yeah.
And I wish that I wish that I had that, early through every part of it, because you're always like a little feeling of like, I want to be validated. Was I good? Did my other scene partner think I was good? Was I there for them? Like, and you're always kind of questioning yourself. But when you're the boss of it, and you're going, okay, I'm creating the story. Now I'm going to jump in and play this role and give to this actor. And now I'm going to jump in and play this role, and the camera's just on me, and I have to give these things to tell the story. You know what I mean? Then it becomes like freer in so many ways, as opposed to looking for validation.
That's awesome.
And so, but it's still hard. Like the director hires you, and you want to be like, did I do a good job? But if you can get to a place, I think, and I'm talking to myself, like if you get to that place of like, I know what I need, and if they want something different, they'll come tell me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So come in, do your job, stay present, do everything you can for the other actor to make them good, and give as much as you can. And then if directing, if someone comes over and gives you, hey, direction, younger actors are like, oh, I'm not doing it right. It's not. When I give a direction, it's like, I've got that take. Try this. Play with that. What if we did this? It's an exploration all around. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So like, I don't look at direction as like, he's not happy. I look at direction of like different variations of trying stuff. You know what I mean? Or, okay, and processing what they need for the story. You know what I mean?
My friend Peekaboo Street.
Hold on a second.
What?
You got a friend named Peekaboo?
Yeah.
I want a friend
Hippie
named
parents.
Peekaboo. I need a friend named Peekaboo.
So, I mean, turns out with a name like Peekaboo, it propelled her, I think, to being, a gold medalist ski racer. But she talked about doing chess pieces. You're always figuring out the course. You're always figuring something out about that. It's kind of, it's being like transitioning from an athlete to an artist. It's kind of, there are these puzzle pieces, but you get to do it together. Yeah. That's the only difference, where, sometimes you have like a team of people when you're an athlete, where, you have like a whole team helping you. But I think it's
sometimes that's detrimental too. Like, because you have a lot of people that are saying yes and building, and it might not be
yes
right.
people.
The
yeah.
yes people could be very dangerous.
Yeah.
I rather have no people. People that are like, you sure about that?
No, but the athletes, like coaches, like actually they're
yes.
like when I'm saying like the team of people in your corner,
yeah.
like they're normally pretty tough, and they're like, okay, we need to help you figure out how to win or whatever that is. But it's kind of
or give you that feedback of like, you could work more on this without you getting so offended that like, what do you mean I'm not great? You know what I mean? Like,
but that's ridiculous.
That's how you grow.
But I was gonna say, it's like it's always I feel like all the people in my life are ruthlessly honest with me, but I want it that way because I always want to know what the truth is. It's more important for me to always know where I stand in my reality, you know, because sometimes you're like, did I, you know, when I've been in relationships or, you know, and I come out of it and I'm like, what the fuck was the truth? Like, who the fuck was that person? Who the fuck am I? What's anything? Like, am I even like, you know, you come out of it and you have to learn all these lessons of learning more and more about humanity. And then you have to like reconfigure where you stand in relationship to the world. Like just being like, okay, I thought my reality was this. It's no longer that. I have to start from scratch again and then kind of like figure out what my reality is. So I think like it's always helpful, especially when you're wanting to grow and be better all the time, then you're surrounded by people that are always telling you
and
where you stand and pushing you because then you're like, okay, I want to get, you know, at the top of the mountain. And so, you know, then you have people in your corner who are like, okay, well, this action is, you know, this sidestep is not going to help you do that. Or, you know, you do a lot of manifesting, right? Do you believe in like, cause you had little Post-its. I remember when I was like crashing at your place, you have these, like, you know, incantations
they're called magical spells.
Yes. So
I have a wand made out of oak.
Are you, which house are you? I'm
Hufflepuff.
Oh, I'm a Gryffindor with Hufflepuff tendencies.
You know, I like to play with the universe sometimes just to see like if I can call things into existence. And I promise you it works if you put your attention on something. So like a game I'll play is like, I want to see a purple car in the next 3 days.
And then you'll see a purple car.
And you'll sit there and go, you think about the purple car, and then you get excited about how it's going to manifest. Like, when's it coming? You know what I mean? So I'll be driving, I'll be like looking around, and it always comes when you forget about it. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, yeah.
So like I'll be driving and going, oh, looking for that. I haven't seen a purple car in a long time, but I'm gonna see it. And
I want to see a purple car today.
And you're like, I wonder how it's gonna come into my existence. And so this is how it happens. So like within 2-3 days, I get picked up for work, right? And this car pulls up, and I get in. It's like 5 a.m. and the driver turns the car on, and the whole dashboard lit up neon purple. Now, I said I wanted to see a purple car, but the universe gave me a purple car. I'm inside the car.
I'm inside the car.
And the whole when was the last time you saw a dashboard all purple, neon lights that lights up the whole
Maybe never.
Yeah. So like you kind of laugh to yourself and go,
wow,
okay.
You did it. Okay.
Yeah. Wasn't exactly like I'm thinking purple car outside, paint, but maybe if I was more specific, it would have came that way. But it's like it gave it to me the way it wanted to give it to me. And then you kind of so I've done these games, and one time I was like, I want to see a firefly, right? I'm from New York.
In the middle of winter.
This is recently too. This was like a couple of months ago, and I was kind of cheating a little bit because like I knew I was going to Texas, and I was like, I think they have fireflies in Texas, and if not, I think I'm going to New York in like 2 weeks later. So I didn't give it a timeline. I was just like, I want to see a firefly because I haven't seen one. I grew up with fireflies. And
I want to see $1 million in my bank account.
in New York, we call them lightning bugs. So it's weird that I didn't say lightning bug. I called it a firefly. So don't see a firefly in LA, obviously. You don't really see them. And then I went to Texas and for a weekend, like that weekend. And I was like, oh, I'm going to see it. And I didn't see any fireflies. I'm like, so I even cheated even more. I went to somebody who lived there. I go, do you guys have fireflies here? And they go, yeah, I haven't seen them in a while. Huh. Like,
all the pesticides, maybe?
Maybe, I don't know. Like,
killing them.
I was like, that's weird. I thought I was going to see a firefly. And I go home, and I'm like, I got a trip in New York coming up in 3 weeks. Maybe I'll see it there. And then I'm watching this show, and sometimes it gives it to you in a way that makes you stretch your imagination.
Right.
And you're like, well, that's it. I think that could be it, right?
Or it's like on television or something.
So, but it could be anywhere. Like
firefly. It could be on someone's back. A tattoo.
It could be. You know what I mean? You have to be open to how it's going to bring. So I'm sitting there and watching this documentary, and these people are sitting around a fire pit, and it's got a statue of this fly around the fire pit. I'm like, firefly? I mean, that's a stretch. Okay. I mean, that's, if I really want to stretch it, universe, you gave it to me, but I really wanted to see a firefly, or some sort of firefly. So I thought about it a little bit more. And then 2 days later, I'm having dinner with my son, who's 2, and my partner Lily, and he has this little thing where, like, in the in the fruit snacks, they give you like a little card with like a picture on it, and it's face down the whole time. And I'm having dinner, and I get the bill, and I pick it up to give it to him, and on the card it said Firefly, and a picture of a firefly on the card he got in his fruit snack. So, like, if you put your attention on it and you open your awareness to things, you'll see it. If you think red, you'll see red. If you think the world is failing you, the world will fail you. If you think that things are going to go your way today, they will go your way today. If you think that one line that you hate to say, you're going to screw it up, you're going to screw it up. You know what I mean? Your mind is so powerful. Mm-hmm. And I think, going back to like athletes, they train, and then they let go and they're in the moment. And then the universe does the rest of the work. So it's like, I try to think of that, like those gymnastic athletes that do these incredible things. And I'm like, how do they do that with their bodies? And they're flying and they're, on these trapeze things and they're doing these things. And I was like, it inspires me to go to the gym. I gotta get to the gym. But like, I look at that and I'm like, that's dedication and preparation. And then also like the your show is a lot about greatness and how do you be great. And I'm humbled that I'm even on the show because, no one, I don't think anybody's ever like, I'm great.
No one ever feels they're finished.
Great.
No.
Because you're never finished. So even if you win
Robert Downey Jr., after he won the Oscar, he literally was like,
what are you going to do next? Like,
and then he's like, well, now I'm on the decline. Like now it's always something that it's never enough. It was, finally, it's never enough.
It's never enough. You can win an Oscar and you're like, okay, I did that.
Yeah.
Now I got to get another Oscar, okay? And then you win 2 Oscars, and you're like, all right.
Like his
where's
version,
the end
Robert
of
Downey
it?
he was still worried if he was going to be relevant or not. Like after winning the Oscar and
I don't think anybody ever feels relevant. I think fame is fleeting. I think fame is all perspective. You know what I mean? Like I never walk around like I'm famous because to some people, they might know my work and they might be like, oh, I really enjoy it. You're a celebrity. Yeah. To somebody else that hasn't seen my work, I'm not famous to them. So it's really relative. I remember being in a bar once and with a friend, and this guy came over. He said, can I have a picture with you? Yeah, sure. Took a picture. And my friend goes, do you know who that was? Oh, I don't know. He's like such and such quarterback for this one team. I don't watch football, so I had no idea. So to me, that guy was just a guy asking for a picture. Mm-hmm. To the guy asking for the picture, I was famous because he wanted a picture with me. To my friend, I'm not famous. The football player's famous. Yep. So it's all perspective. I never buy into it. I just try to do my work. If people appreciate it, I'm appreciative that they watched it. But for me, it's just like I get excited about doing the work, the art of it. And then, you hope the audience shows up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The audience showed up for Twilight. So Twilight, okay, I have so many questions about this because this was such a zeitgeist moment in time. I mean, it was comparable to Harry Potter. In terms of based on a best-selling book and
popular fan base.
Yeah, huge fan base. What was that experience like coming into it? Did you know that it was going to be such a big hit coming into it?
Nobody knew. If they knew Brad Pitt would play my role, like, you know what I mean? They wouldn't have hired me. They'd have been like, this is going to be huge. Brad Pitt, $10, $20 million.
They really didn't think so? Because, I mean, it was like based, Hunger Games. They must have, I think they knew.
All these studios passed on it. So on the script. So this small studio, Summit, was making it.
Oh, my God.
So it wasn't like it was being made by a huge studio. So a lot of people had already passed on it. It was a small cult following of a book. When my agent sent me the appointment for it, I had an audition for the movie. And
Did you audition? Was this the role that you auditioned for?
Yeah, for Carlisle. And I got the audition, and they called me. And they said, hey, do you want to be in a vampire movie? And I go, no. And they go, well, why? And I go, well, there's a lot of like vampire movies out, and there had been a bunch. Because usually there's like one good one, Interview with a Vampire. And then all of a sudden for like a couple of years, everyone's trying to mimic it, and then it just kind of gets oversaturated, and they're like trying to do things that are just like D-list vampire movie stuff. And that's where we were at in the rut of this time period of like, you know, this indie
Vampire Diaries.
No, that was before Vampire Diaries. This was before Vampire Diaries. So it was more like this, the independent of like three guys go into a cave and see bats and they get bit and blood splurts out. It was just like bad vampire making time in our, you know. So I was like kind of snobby about it. I was like, no, I don't want to be in like that kind of movie.
So you almost turned this down.
So I, not knowing anything about it other than it was a vampire movie. And my agents were smart enough to go, well, it's based on a book, and Catherine Hardwicke's directing it. I think you should take a look at it. Yeah. And I go, oh, I like Catherine Hardwicke. I knew her work. Yeah. And I thought, you know, sometimes you're like, I don't, if other people that you admire are doing something, it makes you go.
She did 13, right?
She did 13. Yeah. That skateboarder movie, that was really great.
What else did she do?
What was the skateboarder movie? That she did.
Oh,
with Emil.
Dogstown?
Dogstown, yeah, she's so good. So I thought, you know, here's a director that I really admired, and if she's doing it, maybe she knows something I don't. I don't know. Send me the script, and they go, there's no script. They're not giving the script out. Okay, well, when's the appointment? It's tomorrow. Okay, well, what time is it? I think the bookstore's open. I'll go get the book, right? You said it was a book? Yeah.
Wow, so you just skimmed through it?
So I went to get the book.
What else did she do, T?
She's done 13 Lords of Dogstown, Miss Bala, Under the Bridge, Mafia Mama.
I think 13 at the time. 13 and Dogstown were the movies.
The big movies that she was
known for at that time. But I thought they were really, really fantastic films and really well done.
And she hired Nikki Reed.
Yeah. So
for Twilight.
So I said, I went and read the book. I brought the book home, and I was like, I'll just skip to Carlisle. I was like, oh, there's Carlisle. And then I started reading it, and I was like, I kind of got sucked in. So I was like,
it was good.
So I was, I was good.
It was
kind of hooked. So I went back to page 1. I was like, all right, I'll just start it. And I like read the whole book in like 2 o'clock in the morning. I finished the book, and I have the audition the next day. But I was like, this is actually a fun read. So I go to the audition the next day. And I auditioned, and Catherine was in the room, and it was so much fun working with her because she was reading the other lines, and
that's awesome.
You know, she's like participating, and like she has this enthusiasm.
So you got to read with her. You didn't even have to do like a.
I got to like read with Catherine,
that's amazing.
And she was so enthusiastic and like makes you feel good and comfortable, and like you're trying things and playing things.
Oh, I love that.
And so I walked away going, that was really fun. I had a good time in that audition, you know? And I think it went well. And so I called my agents and I said, hey, so any feedback? And they were like, oh, you're on a short list, you know? Okay. That means there's like 5 to 10 guys on the short list, you know?
Sure.
And it could go in anyone's direction.
Sure.
And then
do you know who was on the short list?
I don't. I know one actor that ended up getting the role. So they actually made an offer to this other actor.
Do you know?
Yeah, I won't.
Can you say why not? You're not allowed
Ratings. click. Bait. I don't want to say because I don't want to open that can of worms for him.
Oh, okay.
But like,
why is that a can of worms?
Well, because then it's gonna be like a lot of people are gonna be like, I can't believe you passed on Twilight, and then like he's gonna get press for me talking about him. So I just don't want to get. I don't want to put that attention on him for it.
Okay.
You know, if he ever says I went up for this role and got it and didn't do it, then I would say, that happened. But I don't want to be the one to. Anyway,
fair.
He's a fantastic actor. Yeah. And he got the role, and he was a couple, like maybe 5 years older than me, and on screen they thought I might look too young next to them.
Yeah.
So they were like, but it's the point of the book. He's 23, supposed to look young, but on screen they were like, it might look too bizarre. Let's just go with the older version. And I heard they wanted to go older with the role. Okay, well, there's nothing I can do about that, right? But I was bummed, but I just kept thinking, man, I felt like I was supposed to do that one, you know. And again, you're putting your awareness on it, you're thinking about it. And I said, you know, maybe Catherine will do another book. You know, maybe there's a second book. I know there's a second book. Maybe she'll do that one. Mm-hmm. I had a good time working with her. I was at this casting office. And like a couple of days later, and I'm sitting there, and there's a coffee table out, and a coffee book, and it says 50 years of vampire making in Hollywood, right? And I'm flipping through the book, and it's all these like old vampire movies. There's an interview with all these cool vampire movies. I'm like, well, thanks, universe, because like you're just rubbing it in. I didn't get this role. Like,
man.
Thanks a lot. But I thought it was such a cool book, and I said, you know, even though I didn't get the role, I thought, I'm going to write down the name of this book. I'm going to send it to Catherine and just tell her, hey, I had a really nice time with you. And I hope if we get to do something in the future together.
That's
and I
so
literally,
sweet.
I wrote in the book, sorry, this one didn't work out. I hope we get to work together in the future. And I hope that you make a classic vampire movie that is seen as one of the greats. You know what I mean?
That's so beautiful.
And I had my agent send it to her. And I was like, on to the next.
Sure.
And then what I found out was the other actors, like, deal couldn't go through, or maybe he was on something else that was like he couldn't get out of. And they went to Catherine and said, well, he's not going to be able to do it. The actor that they actually offered it to. They go, who do you want to go to next? And she happened to get my book that day.
Magical,
right? And so she looked down and she was like, well, what about Peter Facinelli? But if I didn't send that book, I would have been one of 5, 6, 7 guys that were probably in consideration. It could have went anybody's way at
but
that
I think
point.
it's also because you were so genuine. Like you really meant, like I like just hearing your story, it feels like that landed and that was such a classy, but like you really had a great time and you were like, hey, like I hope we get to work again, like, cause this was really awesome. And then she must have felt that genuine, like you weren't attached to it. You were like, hey, thank you so much. Like, appreciating that.
Well, I always
and
joke
gratitude.
with her that I bought the role for $29.99. That's how I got my role. I just bought it for $29.99.
So then you get the call. How's that?
So I got the call and they were like, hey, it's the other actor fell out. You're going to go your way. It's going to go your way. And I really didn't know it was going to be what it was. So we end up
No one had no idea.
I mean, if anything, we got there and we're shooting, the first 3 days were abysmal because we were shooting the baseball sequence and it was rainy.
Oh, yeah.
And people's makeup started to run and
Kellen was telling me about how when I first met him, the contacts.
Yeah, we did. They couldn't.
You would have to leave them in all day,
Well,
and then you'd have you wouldn't be shooting
he
half
had
the
a
time.
hard time with the contacts, and they didn't have a contact technician, and that's how low budget. We were a $30 million movie. It wasn't super low budget, but it was they didn't have a contact technician to put the. So me and the makeup artist, and I think Jackson we would hold Kellen down as the makeup artist was putting it in. He'd be like, ugh. So he hated it, but so we're filming this thing, and we don't know if all we're going is hey, if this is good enough. And we just get enough people to show up. Maybe we get to do the second book. That would be cool, right?
Yeah.
We had no idea it was going to be this juggernaut of a thing, or this worldwide mass appeal.
You didn't get the rumblings of the press because I was hearing that even when it was being cast. I was the rumblings, oh, this is supposed to be big. It's supposed to Kristen Stewart, who's gonna play?
Yeah. I mean, Kristen had done work, but it wasn't like Brad Pitt and huge people, and Rob hadn't done much. So I
mean, he was in Harry Potter though. He was
but he wasn't Rob Pattinson today, and he wasn't Brad Pitt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
was he in Vanity Fair? Did he do Vanity Fair before? Was that before?
No, I mean,
or was that after?
He had literally,
Twilight?
I think, just done that Harry Potter, maybe a couple other movies, but he wasn't I didn't know who he was when I met him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So then we're doing the movie, and we're thinking, I don't. My makeup's terrible. I look like Ronald McDonald sometimes. I'm Then we're sparkly vampire. We're I don't know if this movie's gonna play. And then we were like,
sparkly vampire.
Maybe nobody's gonna see this. I don't know. And so we wrapped the movie, and I wasn't down on the film, but it was just another film that we did. It wasn't hey, we're making this thing, sometimes you get that feeling.
Yeah.
And sometimes it turns out not to be a thing, and you're just you had all these high hopes, yeah, it's wah wah, nobody's up. And this one was the opposite in a great way because I wasn't really expecting much. And then when I finished the movie, I remember I went to Hawaii. I took my family to Hawaii, and the first inkling I got on it was everybody on the beach was reading the book. So I was walking up and down, and I was like, that's weird. Everybody's just reading this book. And then I went.
Everyone on the beach.
On the beach, 9 out of 10 people were reading that book, and I was like, "That's kind of." And then I was laying out on the beach, and some young girls 15 came over with their friend. They go, "Hey, are you playing Carlisle?" I was like, "Yeah." How do you know that? And the movie's not even out yet, right?
Yeah,
It's we just wrapped it.
Sure.
And I was like, "That's bizarre."
No, people were talking about it.
So
wait, by the way, did Rob Pattinson? What did he do before?
Vanity Fair came out in 2004, so
Yeah. So that
maybe.
was that was before.
2008. Yeah.
Yeah. Ours was 2000. Yeah, I didn't know that. So it really wasn't until, it was the premiere of the movie that people had like tented out and like for days they were in tents, like, waiting for this premiere to happen. And it was like this big, like a lot of talking about the movie. But that was almost more nerve wracking because I was like, oh my God, like all these people are showing up. What if they hate the movie?
Oh no.
What if they're like, we hate it, like it's not what we thought? All these people, all these happy people are gonna like run us out of town with pitchforks.
What year?
So it was like, they're gonna be like, we hate you guys, you ruined the book.
What year
like,
is this?
This is like 2008.
Okay.
And so, but then the movie came out, it did well, people liked it. And
People
then
didn't like it.
Yeah.
They liked
Yeah.
it. Was a moment.
Yeah, it was a moment. And then, but we went right back into the second one. So we were kind of in a bubble. Like I didn't, we were like I was on Nurse Jackie too. So I was shooting both at the same time. I was too busy to sit there and go, hey, I'm in a really popular movie right now. I was like going to work, shooting the second one, flying to New York, doing Nurse Jackie, flying back and forth.
Were you starting to feel that at all?
The only thing, here's what I felt.
Was it the airport?
Here's what I felt. I remember walking through the airport one day going,
wait a minute.
No, not even
No?
wait a minute. It was this. Wow, it feels really good to have two jobs right now. That's how it felt. Because
so
as an actor,
true.
you're like, when's my next
When's
job?
my next
and I had
job?
this beautiful thing that was like, oh, I have this movie that's a mass appeal, and I have this TV series that's actually critically acclaimed and people like it.
My
and they're
mom's favorite show.
Yeah,
She
I
loved
remember
you.
telling me.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, I get to do these two fun characters, and I'm having such a great time, and I feel so blessed. And I was filled with gratitude, But I was never like, hey, I'm in this, I'm the shit because I'm in this thing. It was just like, or I feel like I've reached this pinnacle. It was just a moment of feeling like, and as an actor, it's very rare you feel this security with fulfillment. You can have security of like, oh, I've got this TV series that I'm doing, and I have got a job for the next 9 months. I could go on vacation and not worry about cash, and not worry about this and not worry about that. But maybe that TV series isn't, and you're looking, going, oh, I wish I was doing this thing over there. So you're not as fulfilled. But this one was like security and fulfillment, and that made me feel really filled with gratitude, and like that I was able to do these two things that I really enjoyed doing.
Yeah.
And the busyness of like flying back and forth and was exciting. You know what I mean? I
And where
remember
were you
I was
filming? Were
I was
you in
filming
Canada?
the movies in Vancouver, and then I was filming Nurse Jackie in New York. So they had me flying back and forth from Vancouver to New York for like 2-3 months straight, just and then I would do it again the next year. For some reason, they always shot at the same time. So like for several years, it felt good. Like
Yeah, how many? It was like, how many movies? What was it, five?
five movies, and then the TV series was 7 years. So like that was
That's wild.
yeah, so it was a really nice time to like go. I have work where I'm feeling fulfilled. I like who I'm working with. I
Oh,
love
that's
the cast on
awesome.
both
Yeah.
of them.
Oh.
They're different. They're both so different that I could be comical over here, and I could be this grounded dad over here. Yeah, and then when I wasn't working, I was able to like get my first movie that I wrote off the ground. I didn't direct that one, but it was like the first thing that I wrote. It was called Lucy's, that I was able to like write and get produced, and I starred in it, and it was made. So I was like, creatively, I was feeling really fulfilled. Creatively, I was feeling really fulfilled.
Yeah. Okay, so I know in terms of like heat for Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart, like it was really intense. Did you also experience that, like from fans, or you were just in your bubble? You were just in your flow.
Honestly,
You're like,
I never
oh,
felt, because I was the dad, I kind of was left alone, and also because I didn't look exactly like
That's
Carlisle.
true.
I don't even recognize myself in that role sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I see a picture of Carlisle, I'm like, I look so different with like pale skin and blonde hair.
Sure.
That like I was able to.
Do you have to dye your hair?
The first one I dyed it, which they say blondes have more fun, but it's not fun. It's not fun sitting there with tinfoil in your hair.
Yeah.
It's not fun sitting in a chair, having it bleached out, turning red, then turning orange. It's kind of scary, not fun. And then it's not fun like walking around having your roots grow out and you have to go back and do it 2 weeks later.
No.
It's not fun. Blonde do not have more fun.
So how did you use a wig?
Yeah, for the second one, because I was shooting Nurse Jackie at the same time, they were like, well, you got to either wear a wig for that or wear a wig for Twilight. And I was like, well, Twilight's more a fantastical kind of like, Carlisle's more like, you know, I can get away with a wig with that one.
For sure.
I'd rather not have it for the other one because the other one's more,
grounded. It's a real
like
story.
Real story. It's going to look weird. Like I've got a thing on my head. So, but the wigs were also like, you know, trying to figure out how to get the wigs right because like you always just feel like the wig doesn't feel natural either, you know?
No.
And so I remember the next movie, they'd be like, we're going to fix that wig. And then it would be worse. And somehow it would be worse. And the next one would be like, you know, the last 2 times the wig looked terrible. We're going to fix that. And then it'd be like, oh, God.
So you were left alone, basically, though, for this experience. Like, I mean, in
I
terms
wasn't
of
left alone. I was able to
move through the world.
I've had fans that knew that I played Carlisle and still do and are very respect. But also, like, I wasn't... You know, because I was the dad, they weren't like screaming at me, chasing me through the mall either, which was kind of nice because some of the younger cast, you know, had that.
Did you? And how did you?
And that could be really scary.
And how was? Did you see? Were you witnessing some of that? Like, were there?
I mean, it's scary. Like, and I had tastes of it. Like, I remember going to. My daughter was like 13 at the time, or 14. No, I think it was like 14. It was the age of like the movies, fan base. And I went to a soccer game. And like when I went to the soccer game, like I had to kind of like put a hood on and like a hat and you know, and I hated it because I'm like, oh, they think I'm this. Oh, there's that celebrity with a hat and glasses. You know? So but I just want to enjoy my daughter's game, right?
Sure.
But I'm also like I hate, and I think it's because I'm a fanboy. So if I ever went to somebody and was like, hey, can I have an autograph? And they were like, no, I would feel gutted. So like,
don't meet your heroes.
So I never could say no to people. So I'd be like, so I'd be watching my daughter's soccer game. Somebody, hey, do you mind if I sign this thing? Yeah, here you go. Can I have one? And then all of a sudden, like more people.
And there's a huge line.
And now there's like, you're like, and now it's an autograph signing, and my daughter's looking over at me. I'm like, sorry. Here you go. Here. And then my daughter would like come over after the game and go, listen, let's just go home. I don't want the other team to get autographs because we just lost to them. Like, well, okay, that's fair.
That's super fair.
Let's sneak out of here. But she, I felt bad for her, but I was like participating and learning also to set boundaries. I mean, I wasn't good at it because I was like very much like I'll be of service to you, and I'll be trying to do both. But and that gets scary too because now you've got like 30, 40 people pushing, that are coming at you, and you're trying to watch.
Oh, damn.
And then at the end of the game, the other team, they're all and you're like, gotta go.
Yeah.
So
learning to set boundaries and learning to say no, and it's
but I still,
it's a balance.
Like, I have a hard time saying no to like fans, like because I think it takes just as much time to say yes and take the photo than it does to say no. I'm on my time. I was out once with another celebrity.
I think it's only like, it's probably like if you're in the bathroom. That's the only, like, it's like, I'm taking a shit right now. Can you give me a second?
Then you're like, no.
Like, I'm like, can I, like, that's the only time it's like, can we do this maybe outside?
But
like,
I was with another celebrity and they weren't a fan of mine. They were a fan of his. I'm always like, I'm cool with that. And the person said, I'm on my time now. I was like, well, I'm very respectful. Like, I respect that he said that. I'm not gonna say it. But I was very like, oh, that's him setting boundaries. That's nice. Yeah. But at the same time, I was like, I couldn't do that because I'm like, it would have taken just as much time to be like, sure, smile, take the picture, sign, out the door. Yeah. But the problem is, it's not that one. It's like that opens up a floodgate of like somebody saw that. Oh, that's permission for like 5 more people to come. So then that's where I think it gets hard. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But and especially if you're like where Rob and Kristen and Taylor were, it was just like people just screaming and like your name and like coming in. You're like, I don't know, like I don't. You want to make everybody happy, but you don't know how to get. I remember sometimes like I'll do like autograph signings, and if like somebody will come up shaking, and I want to be like, hey, I'm not gonna hurt you. Like, and I get it because like I get excited.
I've been
nervous to meet you, but it's like,
oh my God,
then as the person,
I met James McAvoy, and I was like, and he was so cool, and I was like, oh hey, I was like, really, I was like, hey, I love your work, and he's like, really, like, and then we started talking.
You get excited about. Like,
I get excited. Oh God!
But as the person that they're excited to meet, I'm like, I better not talk too much because I don't want to disappoint them. So I'll just be like, oh sure, I'll take a picture with you. Here you go, because I know
the shaking is real. I can confirm.
But yeah, I've met lots. I remember being on a plane once. I went and did a Comic-Con somewhere, and on the plane there was like Lou Ferrigno, who played the Incredible Hulk back in the TV series era, and then on this side was John Schneider, who's in the Dukes of Hazzard. Now I grew up watching both of those shows, the Dukes of Hazzard and Incredible Hulk, and I was sitting right next to Lou Ferrigno. And I was like 12 years old. I was like, Lou, put me in a headlock. And taking like selfies. He's like, I was like, make like the Hulk face, you know. And then like at the end of it, I remember, I think it was Daisy Duke, the woman who plays Daisy Duke, was like, hey, can I get a picture with you? And I was like, if you would have told me at 12 that Daisy Duke would ask for my picture, it would have been like, what drugs are you on? Like just don't see yourself as that. I don't glorify my work like as more important than anybody else's work. You know,
Sure.
I just go to work and I'm making my widgets over here, and that person's making their widgets over there, and I'm trying to be as creative as I can. But everybody has creativity in their jobs, and has to find happiness in the things that they do. What's sad to me is when people go into an occupation. I think we're very lucky to do what we love to do.
I love it so much.
When you find other people that are like, hey, I'm going to get into this job because it's good money. And my dad always taught me, if you love what you do, the money will come.
Yeah.
Because if you love what you do, you'll do it well.
Yeah.
And then you'll get paid
And
well.
it's your skill set.
You know what I mean?
Probably.
But if you're just doing something for money, then it's like the wrong motive. Because like you're not showing up to put everything. Like when people say to me,
you can fail at the things that you don't want to do. So why not try, like, I mean, it's the Jim Carrey phrase, and why not try to fail at the things that you love to do? I mean, you're going to, and it's interesting because you will fail. Like you will, I mean, like whatever that version is, I don't even know if I believe in failure. They're just learnings and lessons on the journey.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sort of like, oh, that didn't work. Okay, try this. Like, okay, you're just climbing a mountain and you're going to fall in ditches or
and you never stop growing. Like you never stop growing.
Yeah.
So like I never sit there and go, oh, people are like, you ever have a moment where you're like, oh, you've been doing this for 30 years. You ever have a moment where like you've made it? And I'm like, no.
Because
you're always trying to
You're always trying to better yourself.
Here, create something there. Every time I start a job, I'm like, I don't know how to play this character.
I know.
Like, but that if I did know, if I was like, I got this, I know that it's not the role I should have been taken. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if it scares you, it has to scare you a little bit.
And go,
shit, this is out of my wheelhouse.
This is not in my wheelhouse, and it makes me uncomfortable because I don't know how to, go. I have a movie out right now called Dead Money. Go see that movie.
I'm so excited. Yes.
Watch that movie because my character's hysterical.
Oh my God, it's so funny. I saw the trailer. I was obsessed.
Have you seen my character in it?
Oh my God, wait, the guy, what's his name?
LT.
Emil
Hirsch is in it.
I love him. He's so, I watch
he's great.
His Instagrams. I laugh endlessly of him just, I don't know, doing him working out, getting in hijinks of like crazy. I don't know.
He's so talented.
Funny.
I love watching his work too. And
he reminds me so much of Leo, right?
He has this
Leonardo DiCaprio a bit.
Natural, like just a naturalness about him. It's just an ease that's really beautiful. But he works. He doesn't show up. He shows up prepared. Yeah. And when he's prepared, then you can let go and be natural. When you don't show up prepared, that's when, if you try to take a test and you didn't study, that's when the nerves come out. You know? So like, but if you look at that character, it's so different from me. And like, I looked at that and I was like,
different.
I was like, all right.
You're playing like redneck guy, right?
Like handlebar mustache.
Oh, got a mustache. Hey,
and
get him.
But it's so fun and it was fun to play and like
the opening scene is you're like coaching your son to be like beat up Emil Hirsch or something. It's like just a fight. What is it?
It's a poker game that gets robbed.
Oh.
Okay. So I play this cop that comes in to the poker game and you think he's busting the game, but he's like one of the players. And so they're like, oh, yeah, and then he sits down at the table. And then when he gets robbed, he has his gun off to the side. So it's like, they make everybody strip down, and he's wearing like a G-string. He's like, what? So like he's just a fun character to play. But like as I'm prepping that role, I'm like, I mean, so far from me that you're just like, it's uncomfortable, you know what I mean? And then you start to feel the person, and you're like, you know, I remember I did this movie Gangsterland.
Yeah.
And I was playing this mobster, and he was Irish, but
You're great.
Thank you. Did you watch that?
Yeah, I was there. I was at their premiere.
Oh yeah. And so he had kind of an accent that the director was like, "Hey, I want you to do an accent." And but I was like, I don't think Irish is right because he's not from Ireland. He's like first generation, but he's Irish, but he's part of the Irish mob. But like I was trying to find like a way into his, like how this guy speaks.
Yeah.
And I was listening to all like the 1920s kind of radio show.
Yeah,
they all kind of talk like this. Look at the gams on that girl. Yeah. And it was like, and I was like, I can't do that because it sounds like a Bugs Bunny cartoon, right? So like, well, so I'm like, you know, and I didn't audition for it, so it was like they offered it to me. So that sometimes that's scary too, because they're like, "Hey, we're trusting that you're gonna do this thing," you know, and you're like, "I don't know what the thing is," but thanks for trusting me. So like, I'm walking around trying to find something and I've got nothing. Nothing's coming to me. And I remember it was like 3 days before I called the director. I go, "Hey man, so
James Cullen Brassic.
he produced it.
Oh.
It was Tim Woodward. Tim Woodward directed.
Damn. Oh, I thought
And
it was James.
and I said,
Okay.
"Tim, listen." I said, "You know, maybe we don't do an accent for this guy, cause like I don't want to do the look at the gams on that girl." You know? And he's like, "No, I think you should have something." And I go, "Okay." I was like, "Yeah." I hang up the phone, and I'm like, still 2 days later, nothing. Literally the night before we're shooting.
It's kind of like,
This,
Vanished
I get this,
all over again.
I get this
the night
voice in my
before.
head, like that, this kind of rhythm, and it's
Yeah.
kind of a mix of that, like not fully the 1920s, but with a little bit of this Irish. Because I'm like, if you're from this Irish culture, maybe there's like he wants to fit in, so it's not full like you know, top of the morning to you, like with lilt. But I'm gonna mesh these two, and this voice came out of me. I was like, okay, I think that's it. And then I went to work the next day. And talk about nerves. Like I have a scene. I'm on the phone. It's just me, and I pick up the phone and I start talking in this accent. I can't even do it right now because I would be just horrible. But like when you do it, like it just becomes part of it. And I do it, and I'm like, oh, he's either gonna love this or he's gonna hate it. And I hang up the phone, and then Tim comes walking over, and it seems like time slowed down, you know. And he whispers in my ear, "Love the accent." I was like,
Oh, thank God.
God, because I had no plan B. You know,
I had no plan B. Hold on, I'm still not done with the whole Twilight universe because I feel like
Sure.
I mean, I'm so curious. Everything sort of builds in Twilight.
Yeah.
You have, you know, more incredible actors coming on board, like Michael Shannon, and now it's sort of you're coming together,
Yeah.
like you're coming up together. You know, having this like huge kind of moment. And then how do you ride that wave? Were you just still pretty focused on everything else?
Still
and
in the
just,
bubble.
You're still in the bubble.
I mean, the whole time you're just shooting your show,
right.
you know, and then going to a premiere and people are enjoying it, and then you're right back into
And then
shooting
right back. So
it.
you just don't have a
So
time to
there's
sort
not
of.
a moment where you're ever like, I felt the biggest moment for me of gratitude was like, I'm excited about the work that I'm doing, and like I'm fulfilled, you know, creatively, and also I feel fulfilled, like secure financially, which was a great, wonderful place to be. But again, you're never like, okay, now my career is going to take off, or now this thing's going to propel me into something, or like, you're just kind of in that moment of that time. And, you know, all these wonderful actors are coming in, and you're feeling gratitude for working with them. And they're coming in a moving train. So almost, you know, I'm sure in their shoes, they're like, oh,
They're coming into a family.
Coming into a family because we had, and then it just becomes this extended family. But I still talk to the Twilight cast all the time. I got a text chain with them, and
Awesome.
and I really I feel like those people will be family to me forever. You know, and, Ashley Green has a 2-year-old, and I have a 2-year-old, and they were born a week apart.
Oh my God.
So they play with each other, and it's so sweet to see them play together.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. Are there any memorable moments that you had, like one of your favorite moments of the Twilight? Like, because I think I remember just some stories, and now I can't remember. But I remember some, like, it was just kind of like when you're on set, you create this whole family. It's summer camp. You know, were you shooting for 6 months or?
I mean, the last one, because we shot two
Oh,
together.
that's right.
But I mean, honestly,
Did you get a bigger budget as everything went on?
yeah. But the bigger the budget, the more you just feel like when we were doing the first one, it felt the most intimate.
Wow.
Because it was smaller, so you had less people. We went out more because like we could. You know what I mean? Like I remember like going out one night. It was like, oh, Rob's gonna play guitar on open mic night in this little bar that nobody's in, and like nobody cared that who we were.
He's an amazing musician.
He's such an amazing musician.
He's amazing.
So
I think
incredible.
I have some of his songs on my. He's incredible. One of his songs was in the first one.
Movies, yeah. So like that was such a beautiful time.
I love that's a side hustle for him.
It was such a beautiful time. Well, he was just getting up being an artist.
Yeah,
he's
like very Bob Dylan.
As the movies progressed, like that, we couldn't do that. You know what I mean? Because it was like we couldn't go out to dinner as a group because it was like
it was too much.
It was just paparazzi and like people.
And in Vancouver too.
Everywhere. Like if we went out as a group at the airport or anywhere, it was like we went out together. It became a frenzy. So blessing. And also hard, curse.
Sure.
So like, there's a real
you get the nightmare and the
beautiful
fantasy.
Intimacy of that first one that like nobody knew we were doing. We didn't know if it was going to be a hit or not, and we were just kind of like being able to like go to dinners and hang out and like and then it became you go into the gym and people are taking pictures of you through the windows and like and again it's like oh woe is me, you're like oh well this is a hit and it's beautiful and it's a wonderful thing that people care. But at the same time, it became harder to go out with each other to the point where, like, one time I remember going, hey, we can't go out. And Kellen got the Twilight board game. And we played the Twilight board game in the hotel room. It was just
That's
like
amazing.
all the Cullen family sitting around. And I was sure I was going to win because I was like, when I was doing the movies, like even
that's kind of an amazing. That's very meta.
Yeah.
That's such a meta memory.
It was just a funny moment where it was like, should we play it? Yeah, I'll play it.
Who bought it? Wait, Kellen bought it?
Kellen brought it, and he thought it was funny because he loves games. And I was like, I'm a shoo-in to win because like they used to come to me and be like, hey, what year did you bite me? And I knew because I had books like all my research.
You knew it.
I knew.
Read the book day one when you auditioned.
And like I kept journals. I was like, as Carlisle, as the head of the family, I need to know everybody's stories. And so like I was like, they would come to me and be like, was it raining when you bit me? Yeah, and it was 19. Like I just knew all the details. So when we were playing the game, I was like, yeah, I got this. And then I got stumped because I wasn't in any of the high school scenes. So there were all these questions about the high school kids, and I was like, I don't know those characters at all. And then I Ashley Green ended up winning. Actually, I think she cheated. I was bummed I lost. But anyway, so cut to like the fourth movie or the fifth movie, and we're in Squamish, Canada, right? And we get there, and we don't.
Where is Squamish?
It sounds where it is. It sounds exactly where it is. I remember being in Squamish, and in the elevator, it was like, be careful of the bears around the hotels. And I'm like, are we gonna get like killed by bears now? What's going on? It's like in the middle of nowhere, Canada, right?
Yeah.
And so we're in this hotel, and cell phones didn't work. American cell phones didn't work, so they gave us like phones. At that point, everybody was like, "Oh, I got a phone in my contract." So like the production would give us phones, Canadian phones, to like call each other. I was like, "Cool." So I get to the hotel with Kellen, and I said, "Hey, we'll go to lunch." He was like, "Yeah, sure." All right, I'll call you. I'll call your room, and I go up. And then I come back down the lobby, and I was like, I didn't get his cell phone number. And I go to the front desk, and I go, hey, can I have Kellen Lutz's room? And they go, oh, we're not allowed to give that out.
Hey, do you have like code names now? You have to be like Disney characters, or
I mean, I don't
like
use
it's
this.
Notting Hill. It's literally a scene.
Everyone
out of
has
Notting
aliases.
Hill.
No, everybody had aliases.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
You're like
and
Daffy
I was like,
Duck.
but
I want to call
sometimes
Daffy.
he would
Daffy
change
Duck.
his alias. I was like, I don't remember his alias. Like, what was it last movie? And I don't normally do this, but I was like, you know who I am, right?
And they're like, no, sir.
And no, she goes, yeah, no,
Okay.
I know you play his dad.
But
we're under strict orders. We cannot give his room number out. And I was like, I'm trying to go to lunch with him. She was like, we're under strict orders. I was like, So I literally had to sit in the lobby for like an hour, and then like Kellen finally came down. He was like, where were you? I was waiting. I was like, I couldn't read you. So it was like we couldn't even call each other. And it got to that place where it was like we were such in a bubble. It was like hard to, to function outside of, we'd be on set.
That's literally the scene out of the Ben Stiller movie. Wait, do you remember Meet the Parents? Meet the Parents. When he's like, okay, so we're we're allowing the first class passengers, and it's just him, and he's like looking around and he's like, okay, section 1, we're going to bring in. And then she's just waiting. And he's like, there's no one on the plane. He's like, can I? Yeah. And she's like, I'm sorry, sir. You're going to have to step back. I'm sorry, sir. Yeah. And he's like, and he's just sitting there. And she's like, okay, we're going to do the second row. And, he's just waiting there. And he's like, I can't believe this. Like after his whole entire, that she kind of feels like, I'm like, totally. That's insane. Like, I'm like, she couldn't, she's like, yeah, okay, it's fine. She's like, yeah.
I love that movie.
It's so good. What films have shaped your life? Like your films? Like have you learned, like there's always an alchemical experience when you film something. Are there any of like, maybe it was Twilight, maybe it was Nurse Jackie. Are there any projects that you're like, you walked away and you learned so much from?
I mean, I think that there's something from everything. Like, I mean, if you take Twilight, for example, like I know what it's like to be a dad. So I was like, I feel very connected to that character in that sense. But I do feel like Carlisle has so much more. He has so much more patience, so much more compassion. Like I think I'm a very compassionate person, but like, he's there's
us
a
Italians
stillness.
we're
I have
so
more
passion.
Passion comes before compassion sometimes. You know what I mean?
100%.
So like. I look at that. I'm like, I wish I had more. I have to tap into it, and you dial those numbers up. But you're like, I'd like to dial those numbers up in my life. You know what I mean? So there's always parts of you that you explore, and like, that you're like, oh, I'd like to carry that over. But like everything, kind of, there's a part of me in there, and there's another part of me that's kind of latent that sometimes you have to like pump up and bring out of you, and sometimes you have to explore those parts of you, like, oh, I didn't know, those parts, like, I don't utilize in real life, and now you're kind of exploring. Like this last movie, I just finished this movie, and it's based on a true story of this woman who was in an abusive relationship, and the husband, when they got divorced, like hired a hitman to kill his wife. And so I was kind of fascinated by that because I'm like, how do you get from...
You were playing that character?
I was playing the husband.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was, it's not a role that's a good guy. You know what I mean? In the sense of good guys.
Well, you have to explore the shadow,
Yeah, so it's like, well, there's a, one-note villain of this guy, but like, why? Like, how do you get from I do, looking into that person's eyes...
To I want to kill you.
And so much love and having like...
I'm going to erase you from existence.
To I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to hire somebody to kill you. Where's the jump? Where's that journey?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like that made me really go, well, how do you get from love to hate? And like love and hate are very close.
Very close.
They're very. You flip the dime, and that love could become hate very quickly. Control, and you're exploring parts of control and abuse, like, and like there's things that I had to do in that movie that, like, at the end of the day, I have 3 daughters, 3 sisters, like, and I had that feeling of like shame and guilt that I was like reenacting these scenes with these actors and actresses, and at the end I'd always be like, "Are you okay? Just want to make sure you're okay." Like, and they'd be like, "Yeah," and I felt very safe to play that role, and I have to, have the safety on both ends. I'd be like, "If you ever feel uncomfortable, let me know," because you're going to a place of darkness.
And it has to be real. That's the thing. It has to be real.
And it has to come from somebody. And there's, you're exploring a side.
It's real in a safe, contained place. It's like, in a simulation. We're in a simulation within a simulation. It's a Rick and Morty sketch.
So like, but looking at that and going like, how do you get from there to there? And then trying to understand, hurt people. So where's the hurt in this guy?
And what did you discover? What did you find? Where did it come from? His childhood?
His childhood. Mm-hmm. He had a lot of abuse in his childhood. Yeah. There's a lot of anger. Yeah. That contained anger. Listen, what was uncomfortable for me when I looked at it is like, I have triggers, in real life where people can trigger. I don't explode and start beating somebody up. But you feel the anger, right? And then I start going, well, that trigger where somebody says something that makes you upset. Mm-hmm. And then what he does is he doesn't have a way to calm that down, and then it takes him over. Wow! And then his
blind rage.
Yeah, it's the amygdala is running around, and you
fight or flight.
Yeah,
he just
fight
goes.
He goes
to
to fight, and these things. And it's not an excuse. It's more. it's sad to me that
he remembers his trauma,
Yes,
and it's a Pavlovian response of like, it's like a, a dog being beaten, like in dog fights.
So then you see these triggers in the script of him, but you're like, well, I have triggers. And so then you're going, these triggers that I have, I don't act upon them, beat people up or like go into a blind rage, but you feel the anger.
Yeah.
But I'm able to go, okay, take that breath.
That's evolution.
And well, it's just like, everybody has that triggers.
Sure.
Everybody has the triggers. Now imagine
fight or
you
flight.
don't have the filter, and it's hard. I'm not excusing his behavior at all. To me, I had to find a place of like, because the story is really about a woman who's in this abusive relationship who finds a way out, and then the court system kind of fails her, and it's really her. But playing that role, I couldn't come from, I have to be the monster now. I have to find
the twisty mustache.
Yeah, it's like I have to find the reasons and then understand where it comes from, and then explore that part. And that was uncomfortable to explore because you're like, well, everybody has triggers. I have triggers. You have triggers, and like this guy doesn't have the ability. And then you start to feel compassion for like the sadness of like the hurt that person had. The beauty of it is in the movie, the woman gets out of it and then she finds forgiveness and even
for herself and for him.
And again, it doesn't excuse him, but she found the compassion in it. And so I like that message too of like that person's a hurt person didn't give them the right to do what they did.
But she's not
like,
passing on that hurt like a virus. Do you know what I'm saying?
But not holding on to the hurt now too, and then all of a sudden like
then
now
she's doing the same
then
thing.
She's doing it to other people.
Exactly.
So
she's I had a really crazy relationship back in the day, and you it's not a twisty mustache. It's complicated. Like
no,
that's
it's very and in the script a lot of it was like
because
in the beginning when I read the script I was like, well, this scene he's mean, and this scene he's happy, and in this scene he's abusive. I said, but it doesn't really work.
It's
that
reductive.
Way. It's really this. You could have a person who's completely charming and everything's going well, and then this trigger happens, and then the switch happens, and all of a sudden this abuse happens. Yeah. And then there's, I'm so sorry, and then there's shame, and then there's addiction. And and then they come back around and they're loving again, and you're like, it's this merry-go-round of torture for the person who's in it, because you're like, I want to get out, but now they're okay for the moment, and you see the person that you fall in love with, and you're like, that's the person. It's not this monster over here. It's this person over here. That's the charmer. That's the loving person. That's the good dad. And those are elements of that person. But you have to take the whole package. And
the whole package.
You know what I mean? Because you can't
compartmentalize
just compartmentalize. And what happens when people get stuck in abuse, they're like, but I know them, and I know that's not them. And it's beautiful that you could see past, but like you can't change them. You can't change that part of them. They have to do the work to change that part of them, Yeah. So like, you have to set the boundary to leave in order for them to do the work. Because if you don't, the pattern just keeps going. So like we reworked a lot of those scenes, so it wasn't so black and white, but it was more coming out of places. And then it was
that's
like,
so truthful.
And then it became like, these scenes that were like, you're going from here to here, and you're like, well, how did they get, you know what I mean? This journey within the scene. Of all of a sudden he went from like being loving to like now that trigger happened and he's like being abusive. So but hard scenes to play, and like feels you feel the shame even reenacting those scenes.
God,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
there was one night I went home, I couldn't sleep because it's not, you feel so uncomfortable with these reenactments.
Yeah.
You're like, because I grew up in a household full of women, my mom, my dad, my three sisters, and a grandmother. You know what I mean?
All girls. You have all
girls,
daughters.
And I have,
and
three
one
daughters,
now,
I have
one son.
But it's like, I'm very protective of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had to find.
Well, I mean, that is an actor's job. It's like you have to put yourself in, you're exploring humanity, and it's, humanity isn't just bubbles and sunshine and rainbows. It's, the line of good and evil can go down to the depths of all of us. I mean, look, it's like the Holocaust happened.
I had to treat this movie like it was a love story that went wrong from my perspective. Like, had he done the work, had he been able to fix like his issues, maybe he could have ended up in another parallel universe where he actually kept his family, or maybe he could have got to a place where he didn't even have abuse within that relationship because he was able to deal with the demons inside. You know what I mean? And so because he wasn't able to deal with it, then this part of him came out that he couldn't put back in, and that
it was always there.
That was, I had to find the way in because it was like, this guy's not doing and listen, people are gonna watch the movie and my character's not likable, and I had to shut that off too because like I'm playing a part, so you can't go, well, I'm playing this part that people are gonna hate. You know what I mean? They're gonna hate this guy.
Yeah,
he's not a likable person.
Right.
And maybe you can understand.
But you can
hurts.
Probably find like there's always like human beings are really complex, and
listen,
there are
yes, there's
redeemable.
complexity, but there's the things that he's doing is just like monsters. So it's like. The
bad is so bad.
The bad is so bad.
Is so bad that you can't. It's all the good things.
Yeah.
It like the darkness outweighs anything that's good. But I mean,
but when you're
still,
playing that role, you can't sit there and go.
You can't judge it.
I can't sit there and go. I got to make him likable so the audience likes me. I have to shut that off and go. I have to play the truth of this guy.
Sure.
You know what I mean? If they like him, if they find a compassion for him because he's a hurt guy, they find it. If they don't, and they take away.
That's not your job. Your job is just to get in and figure out
and not play the dimensions of like the complexities. You know
the complexities. I think that's what.
Yeah.
I mean, my personal experience when I came out of it was a very Stockholm syndrome relationship, it was, I mean, it was a very mind control. It was so controlling, and I was terrified getting out of it.
It's hard. It's hard because it becomes your norm. So you're
it's also, here's the thing is it doesn't even cross your mind. Like, it did. Occasionally I would be like, this is bad. But then there's a part of you that denial is a hell of a drug. Well, it's especially like if you've spent a long time with someone and then you're just sort of like doubling down or you're just like, no, it's, so you can actually, like, there was this documentary that blew my fucking mind. Oh my God. If you, Tanner, can you Google what's on, there's like this show and, it's a true story about this missing like 13-year-old girl. And basically she was adopted. So it's this, oh my God, it's so crazy. Oh my God, this is a fucking journey. So this mother who's 17 and listen to the cycle of abuse. When she was 13, she was having abuse from her mom, just like, and so she's like, I'm done, bitch. Like, I'm leaving. And she ended up getting pregnant when she was 17 and she wanted to have her daughter have a great life. So she's thinking that she found her daughter a great home. She's just like, I don't have the capacity to take care of you. Like, and she felt really kind of guilty about it. She's like, if I had the means, but she was, she didn't have a home. She was sort of like, I think, homeless and, being shuffled everywhere. So she puts her daughter up for adoption to the seemingly, nice family. Turns out the father is a motherfucking serial killer. Like, and you follow these lies where it's like, I mean, like, and so she knew, this mother, which was really crazy, is that her daughter, so this lineage of her daughter, like, thought she ran away and was threatening to run away at the same age at 13. So literally there was a cycle that happened. So like her mother ran away at it was like that same sort of age, like I think it was like 13 or something like that. So anyway, so she ended up running away and or at least they thought she did. And turns out like she was buried in the backyard, and they keep finding out like all these murders and but it's and the wife who was married to him, she doubled down and she just couldn't, like fathom and believe it. You want to believe, the lie, or you want to believe like the good thing because it's just easier to swallow when you have to like grapple with actual malevolence. And how do you break that down? Because it's not this like, it's not like in the cartoons, like growing up, or it's not this like, Schindler's List, I think, does a great job of that, where it's like he's almost like he's charming and he, I think it was he played Voldemort. What's it? Ralph Fiennes. He's a horrible, despicable character, but he's like funny at times, or you actually think that maybe he's grappling that maybe this is bad just for moments, and you're like, you know, and then, you know, he'll do something that's so fucking horrible. But I think it wasn't this neatly packaged, you know, human beings are complicated. They have all these different layers and levels. And yeah, I mean, so there was this book called Ordinary Men about how like ordinary men were guards in Auschwitz, and how it slowly happens was, you know, they wanted, so it starts with something like, you know, oh, they have patriotism, like they're viewing it, you know, just I have patriotism, like I want my country to be, you know, like great, or well, what, you know, because they were in debt, and so they're thinking that like they had no idea they were going to be killing people, but you know, and so
it's a boiling of the frog.
It's literally the boiling of the, and so
it's a slow thing, and then all of a sudden you realize you're doing this thing, and you're so far
you're
over
so
that,
far
that you're like, it becomes the norm in a weird way, that you normalize it, and it's
so
wrong.
that's what happens. So ordinary men, so they're picked to be Auschwitz guards, and they think they're just going to be guards, and then they're like, oh, actually you're going to be, you know, killing a bunch of people, and they're like, look, but if you're going to back out, like you can totally, upon your free will, back out. And there was like only a few people would back out, because if they did back out, then they were ostracized from their, you know, people would shame them and guilt them of like, you're letting us do the dirty work and da 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 da. They could still, you know, quit at any point, which blows my mind. But they felt, I don't want to let my comrade do dirty work. You know, I'll help you with this. So they were like, you know, they built this like family or friendship. So they're like, and then it just kept going of pushing that line, like the boiling of the frog, and further and further and further, until they were like, I can't believe you know, they were capable of doing this. And that's like sort of the discovery of humanity. So it's like, maybe at one point that guy that you played, like, you know, and there was this other documentary that was also, it was like the worst boyfriend ever, where this guy, he just made bad decisions, but then he kept making really bad decisions, and then he couldn't, his psyche couldn't handle, like, you know, it just kept his, like the abuse just kept getting worse and worse, and that line just kept moving until, you know, he was a wanted man killing people. Like suddenly it went from just strangling a girl to, I mean, and that's bad enough, but like, you know, and then to holding a girl hostage and holding her against her will, and then holding it for like a kidnapping, to like killing a bunch of people. So it's like, you know, it's like you kind of have to, it's a wild, but
very complex.
And we have to dive in all the time of exploring, you know, that part of humanity. We have to, you know, how do you decide, like you're like, certain characters, you're like, nah, I don't, you know, how do you decide if something's like too dark or?
I mean, it depends. Like if it's done in a way that, like this movie's done in a way that's actually telling a good message. You know what I mean? If it's gratuitous or something that
I hate horror. I can't do it. It's hard.
I mean, look, I like.
Although I did do The Purge.
I like a good thriller over horror, because like, you know. But if it's like, and some people like that, like they call it a porn. Horror porn, like it's just like blood and guts all the time, and it's just like I can't watch it. So like I don't know if I do that. But I remember turning down a TV series, not gonna name what it was, but it was like I felt like the characters in it were misogynistic, and you know, I didn't feel like I wanted to go to work and play that kind of role on a day-to-day basis. And if the series gets picked up and goes for years, that I'm going to be playing. Yeah,
you're stuck playing. You're staying in the space.
That's stuck in a space that then all of a sudden that becomes the norm of playing that thing, and I don't want to be typecast as that thing either. So yeah, I mean, and it went on. It was successful, but I never looked back going, I wish I would have done that. It was like, I just felt like it wasn't really for me.
Yeah, by the way, Can't Hardly Wait. That is one of my, like, playing the villain. That is one of my all-time, like, oh my God, I had such a crush on you. I had such a, like, when I was a kid watching that movie, but I loved that movie.
What was fun about
such a classic.
What was fun about that role is like, you could laugh at that character. You know what I mean? Because I remember going to playing that character,
Amanda,
and I went to work and I did the
if
first,
you know, you know.
my first scene, and my first scene, and another actor had gotten fired because he was like playing a teenager, and they didn't feel like he was like young enough. He looked too young. They actually picked like a 15-year-old kid. Next to us, we were like 21. He looked too young. So they actually like recast somebody like days before I started working. So everybody was like on edge, like, oh no, we're all replaceable, right? So everyone's like, I'm gonna get fired. And we hadn't even started working yet. And so I did my first day of work, and I played, what I thought was the character, and it was like a little bit. Like, because I felt like this was a comedy that you could go a little more heightened, with the comedy of it. And I wanted people to look at this guy and be able to laugh at him, but I also wanted you to feel like it was this armor that he's putting on. Yeah. And because later on in the movie, he takes that armor off and he becomes who he really is. And then you're like, oh, that's who he really is.
And then he had this
vulnerability,
moment.
And then he puts the armor back on
immediately,
like the next day. You know what I mean?
Like he had this bonding moment with the Harvard guy, the nerd.
Nerdy guy. And so Charlie Korsman was a fantastic actor.
So good.
And so I was like, I like that arc. You know what I mean? I love the idea that you could kind of laugh at the buffoonery of somebody trying to be somebody that they're not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those were, as an actor, my ideas, and I come in. And so we shot the first day. And I get a call, and they're like, "Hey, can we talk to you?" I'm like, "Oh no, you don't want that call." Right? It's a big studio movie too. So I go in. I'm like, "Yeah, what's going on?" And I'm thinking, maybe they didn't like what I did. They go, "Look, we're gonna reshoot your first day." And I was like, "Okay." And they go, "We just feel like you played him like a little bigger than we think he should be. We want it really grounded. Just play like just be more grounded in the reality of it." And I thought to myself, well, look, here's the thing. I could do that, but then you're going to get the Karate Kid nemesis, you know what I mean? and which is not bad for the Karate Kid.
Right.
But he's not funny. He's just like the jerky jock. You know what I mean? And I think that there's room in this movie for you to laugh at this character, because it's a comedy. I said, but if you want it more grounded, I'll do that, because I don't want to get fired from this movie. It's like one of my first movies. So I went home, and again, they're like, I got to film in 2 days, and I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do with this guy, because I don't have anything. Like, this is what I had. This is what I thought was right. And then I'm like, well, I guess, I'll just show up and play a version of myself, or I don't know how to play this. So I'm sitting there going, I guess and I'm freaking out, because I'm like, I know what they want, but it didn't feel right, and it felt like it would be bland. You know what I mean? And so I was like, all right, but I got to do it, because that's what they want. And then the next day, the phone rang, and they go, hey, and I said, yeah. They go, listen, we cut together that scene. It's hysterical. Forget it. Just do it.
They go, this.
Do
Which
it.
Scene was this?
It was the first scene, the opening scene, where I'm like hanging out with my guys. I'm like, you should break up with your girlfriends, and so they go, just keep doing what you're doing. We think it's actually really funny. And I guess they had like a meet, and they were like, no, it's good. So and then I did that character and played it the way I thought it should be, and it stood the test of time.
You had Jason Segel doing like a quick little one-liner.
We had so many great cast members.
You had
in
Seth Green. You had Jennifer Love
Seth
Hewitt.
Is funny in it too.
He's so funny.
So
Kareem, baby, what's up?
Yeah, so I think there was room for that, and like my character, like I love that people throw those quotes out. Who's gonna want you now, man? Duh.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wouldn't have had those moments that people are throwing out.
They're iconic.
15, 20, 30 years later.
Literally. I still remember it.
It's like, it stood with them, and everybody I meet who's seen that movie, and even my kids have seen that movie now, and they're like, they think it's funny, they think it's entertaining, and it holds up. Like, I saw a copy, they asked me to go do a screening of it like 6 months ago, and I was like, I'll come in, I'll introduce the movie, and then I'll leave. Maybe I'll watch the first 5 minutes. And I sat in the back row, and I watched 10 minutes, and then I watched 20 minutes. And then I watched the whole movie, and I was like, I hadn't seen it so long in the theater. And it was funny. The music was good. Yeah. And like, I laughed at my character, and I felt bad for him too. And I was so far removed. I was watching it as an audience member, and it was entertaining. I was like, I'm so thankful that I got that call, because if I just played it like grounded, it would have been very one note, and I wouldn't have been able to do what I did. So like, but
That's awesome. We have to wrap it up because we actually have to be somewhere like 10 minutes ago.
We're supposed to be somewhere.
we're still finishing this film.
We're doing a little pickup on a movie.
Guys,
we gotta go to work, guys.
Yeah, this has been awesome, and I feel like they're still scratching the surface of so. I had so many more questions, but I mean, we could talk for hours.
I literally chewed your ear up.
I loved it. I loved it. This is exactly what we want. Guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you for the next episode.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, guys. If you like this episode, please comment, like, and subscribe so you can stay tuned for more of our episodes.
A whole nother level.